In the shadowy halls of Ashford Manor, a chilling murder shakes the noble family. Lord Reginald Ashford is found stabbed in a locked gallery. Beneath the eerie gaze of the lady in crimson, a painting cursed with whispers of doom, Hercule Poirot, the brilliant detective, steps into a web of secrets, a hidden will. A gold locket with a tragic past, a slashed canvas, and a mysterious black cat. As fear grips the household, with Charles's debts, Evelyn's secrets, and Clara's terror pointing to betrayal, Poirot unravels a centuries-old scandal tied to Lady Eleanor's murder. With his little grey cells, he exposes the killer, a cunning figure hiding behind the cursed to bring justice and break the painting's deadly spell. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Ashford Manor. The morning sun spilled through the tall windows of Hercule Poirot's London apartment, painting golden streaks across his polished desk. The little Belgian detective, neat as a pin with his waxed moustache and shiny shoes, sat sipping his morning tisana, fancy word for herbal tea he liked to use. His friend, Captain Arthur Hastings, sprawled in an armchair, flipping through a newspaper with a bored sigh. The clock ticked softly, marking the quiet of a slow Tuesday in early autumn, when most mysteries seem to be on holiday. "Old chap," Hastings said, tossing the paper aside, "don't you ever get tired of sitting round? No murders, no mysteries, just us and this dreadful quiet." "I'd kill for a bit of excitement." Poirot's green eyes twinkled. "Mon ami, you tempt fate with such words. The good Poirot does not chase mysteries. They come to him like moths to a flame. Patience, Hastings, is the key to all great things." As if on cue, a sharp knock rattled the door. Hastings jumped up, his face bright with hope. "Perhaps that's adventure knocking now," he said, hurrying to answer it. A young postman stood outside, holding a thick envelope sealed with red wax. "For Mr. Hercule Poirot," he said, tipping his cap before dashing off. Hastings handed the letter to Poirot, who examined it with the care of a jeweller inspecting a diamond. The envelope was creamy, expensive, with elegant handwriting that curled like ivy. The wax seal bore a crest, a lion holding a rose. "Most intriguing," Poirot murmured, slicing it open with a silver letter opener. He pulled out a single sheet of paper, scented faintly with lavender, and read aloud in his precise, accented voice, "Dear Monsieur Poirot, I write to you in a state of great unease. My name is Lord Reginald Ashford, and I reside at Ashford Manor, in the county of Berkshire. Recently I acquired a painting, The Lady in Crimson, said to carry a curse that brings misfortune to its owners. Strange events have plagued my household since its arrival, accidents, noises in the night, and a growing sense of dread among my family and staff. I fear something terrible is afoot. Your reputation as a solver of mysteries precedes you, and I humbly request your presence to investigate. Please come at your earliest convenience. A car will be sent to meet you at Reading Station tomorrow at noon. Yours sincerely." Lord Reginald Ashford Hastings leaned forward, eyes wide. "A cursed painting. That's the sort of thing to get the blood pumping. Are we off to Berkshire then?" Poirot folded the letter, tapping it against his chin. "A painting, Hastings, is but canvas and colour, yet it stirs such fear. Why, that is what interests Poirot. The human heart, it hides many secrets behind. Such tales of curses. We shall go to Ashford Manor, but first I must prepare the little grey cells for the task ahead." By noon the next day, Poirot and Hastings stood on the platform at Reading Station, the air crisp with the bite of autumn. Poirot, dressed in a sleek black coat and a hat tilted just so, looked like a man who could solve a mystery by merely glancing at it. Hastings, in his tweed suit, carried their small suitcases, his face alight with the thrill of a new adventure. A sleek black car pulled up, driven by a tall, thin man with a face as stiff as his starched collar. "Mr. Poirot." "Captain Hastings," the driver said, his voice low. "I'm Grayson, butler to Lord Ashford. This way, please." The drive to Ashford Manor wound through rolling hills dotted with sheep and golden trees. Hastings chatted about cricket, but Poirot stared out the window, his mind already turning over the puzzle of the cursed painting. Grayson said little, his eyes fixed on the road. Though Poirot noted the man's hands gripped the wheel a bit too tightly. Ashford Manor loomed into view. A grand stone house with ivy climbing its walls and tall chimneys piercing the sky. Its windows gleamed like watchful eyes, and the front doors, carved with roses, stood open as if expecting them. Grayson led them inside, where a vast hall greeted them, its floor a checkerboard of black and white marble. A chandelier hung above, its crystals catching the light like frozen raindrops. Paintings lined the walls, stern-faced lords and ladies staring down but one frame, draped in a black cloth, stood out at the far end. "Lord Ashford awaits you." In the drawing-room, Grayson said, bowing slightly. His shoes clicked as he led them through a maze of corridors, past suits of armor and tapestries faded by time. Hastings whispered, "Bit spooky, isn't it?" "All this talk of curses," Poirot smiled faintly. "Spooky, mon ami. The mind creates fear when none exists. Let us see what this Lord Ashford has to say." The drawing-room was warm, with a fire crackling in a massive hearth. Lord Reginald Ashford stood to greet them, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and a face lined by worry. His tweed jacket hung loosely, as if he'd lost weight recently. Beside him sat a woman with sharp eyes and a tight smile. Lady Beatrice Ashford, his wife, Poirot guessed. A younger man, broad-shouldered and fidgety, paced by the window. A young woman with soft curls and a nervous glance sat knitting in a corner. The air felt thick, like a storm was brewing. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, thank you for coming," Lord Ashford said, shaking their hands. His grip was firm, but his voice shaky. "This is my wife, Lady Beatrice, my son Charles, and my niece Clara. We're at our wits' end." Poirot bowed, his moustache twitching. "A pleasure, though the circumstances are most unfortunate. Tell me, Lord Ashford, about this painting and its troubles." Lord Ashford gestured to a sofa, and they sat. Tea was served fine china cups, clinking as Grayson poured. "It's called The Lady in Crimson," Lord Ashford began. "A portrait from 1642, painted by a fellow named Edmund Varnley. Beautiful thing, but it's got a dark history. Every owner, they say, meets with ruin, bankruptcy, illness, death. I bought it at auction 3 months ago, thinking it nonsense. But since it arrived," he paused, glancing at his family. "Accidents." Lady Beatrice cut in, her voice sharp. "A maid fell down the stairs. The stable boy was kicked by a horse. And last week, that chandelier in the hall nearly crushed Charles." She pointed at her son, who stopped pacing and scowled. "Rubbish," Charles muttered. "It's just bad luck. Father, you're letting superstition get to you." Clara, the niece, dropped her knitting, her eyes wide. "It's not rubbish. I've heard noises at night, whispers, footsteps. And that painting, it watches you. I swear it does." Hastings leaned forward, caught by her earnest tone. Poirot, however, sipped his tea, his face calm. "And you, Monsieur Grayson?" he asked, turning to the butler, who stood by the door. "What do you make of this curse?" Grayson stiffened. "I'm not one for tales, sir, but the staff are. Frightened, they say. A black cat's been seen near the painting. Bad omen, some call it." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A black cat, you say? Most interesting. And where is this painting now?" "In the gallery," Lord Ashford said, "under a cloth. I couldn't bear to look at it after." "Well, come see for yourselves." They followed him through the manor, their footsteps echoing. The gallery was long and dim, with tall windows letting in slants of grey light. Paintings hung in neat rose landscapes, horses, ancestors, but at the end stood the covered frame. Lord Ashford hesitated, then pulled the cloth away. The lady in crimson was stunning. A woman in a red gown stared out, her dark eyes sharp and knowing, her lips curved in a faint, almost mocking smile. The brushstrokes were so fine, she seemed alive, her crimson dress glowing against the dark background. Hastings gasped, and even Poirot tilted his head, impressed. "Magnifique," Poirot said softly. "But what is it that makes her so feared?" Lord Ashford pointed to a small brass plaque on the frame. This inscription cave felis ni, Latin for beware the black cat. The story goes that the artist's lover, the woman in the painting, was betrayed and died tragically. The curse began with her. Clara shivered. "I told you, it's real. I saw that cat last night, slinking past the gallery door." Charles snorted. "Clara, you're as bad as the maids. It's just a stray." Poirot stepped closer to the painting, his eyes scanning every detail of the folds of the dress. The glint in the woman's eyes, the faint scratches on the frame. "And these accidents," he said, "they began only after the painting arrived." "Yes," Lady Beatrice said, "and they're getting worse. I fear for us all." As she spoke, a loud crash echoed from the hall. Everyone froze. Grayson rushed out, returning moments later, his face pale. "The chandelier, sir," he said to Lord Ashford. "It's fallen, smashed to bits." Hastings gasped. "Good heavens, anyone hurt?" "No, sir," Grayson said. "The hall was empty, but it's unsettling." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Unsettling, oui, but to Poirot it is a challenge. Lord Ashford, I shall stay and investigate this matter of the painting and its so-called curse. Hastings, we shall need rooms prepared." Lord Ashford nodded, relief in his eyes. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I knew you were the man for this." As they were led to their rooms, Hastings whispered, "What do you make of it, Poirot? A real curse?" Poirot chuckled softly. "A curse, Hastings. None. The only curse here is the one humans we've with their fears and secrets. This painting hides something, but it is not magic. It is motive, and Poirot shall find it." Chapter 2. The Legend of the Cursed Painting. The air in Ashford Manor felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Hercule Poirot stood in the gallery, his sharp green eyes fixed on the lady in crimson, the painting's subject, a woman in a flowing red gown, seemed to stare back, her dark eyes glinting with secrets. The faint Latin inscription on the frame cave, Felis Nigra, beware the black cat, lingered in Poirot's mind, not as a curse, but as a clue. Captain Hastings, ever eager, stood beside him, rubbing his hands against the evening chill. The fallen chandelier in the hall, its crystals scattered like broken stars, had set the household on edge, and Poirot sensed the fear was only beginning. "Spooky, isn't it?" Hastings whispered, glancing at the painting. Those eyes follow you, Poirot, I swear they do. Poirot's moustache twitched. The eyes of a painting, mon ami, are but paint and clever brushstrokes. It is the eyes of the living that hold the truth. Come, let us join the family for dinner. The table, it reveals more than any canvas. They left the gallery, their footsteps echoing on the marble floor, and entered the dining room, a grand space with a long oak table set for 7. Candlelight flickered, casting shadows that danced on the walls, where more portraits of stern Ashford ancestors watched in silence. Lord Reginald Ashford sat at the head, his face pale, his fingers tapping nervously on a wineglass. Lady Beatrice, his wife, sat to his right, her posture stiff, her lips a thin line. Charles Ashford, their son, slouched in his chair, swirling his wine with a scowl. Clara, the niece, sat across from him, her hands folded tightly, her eyes darting to the door as if expecting something or someone to burst in. Mr. Grayson, the butler, moved silently, serving soup with the precision of a clock. A new face. Evelyn Ashford, Charles's wife, sat beside him, her blonde hair pinned up, her smile tight and forced. The room hummed with unspoken tension. "Thank you for staying, Monsieur Poirot," Lord Ashford said, his voice low. "After that chandelier business, I fear we're all a bit rattled." Lady Beatrice set her spoon down with a clink. "Rattled? Reginald, it's more than that. This house feels wrong. Ever since that wretched painting came here." Clara shivered, pulling her shawl closer. "It's the curse, Aunt Beatrice. I told you. The maid who fell, the stable boy, now the chandelier, it's all because of the lady in crimson." Charles snorted, spilling a drop of wine. "Nonsense, Clara. You're scaring yourself silly with old wives' tales. Father, you should sell that thing and be done with it. Sell it." Lord Ashford's voice sharpened. "It's a masterpiece, Charles. Worth a fortune, curse or no curse. Besides, it's part of our legacy now." Evelyn spoke up, her voice soft but strained. "Perhaps Charles is right, Father. If it's causing so much trouble, why keep it?" Poirot sipped his water, watching them all. The family's words were like pieces of a puzzle, each hiding a corner of the truth. He noted Charles's quick temper, Evelyn's unease, fear, and Lady Beatrice's cold control. Lord Ashford seemed torn, caught between pride and doubt. Grayson, serving bread, kept his eyes down, but Poirot caught the butler's quick glance at Clara, curious, perhaps protective. "Lord Ashford," Poirot said, his voice smooth, "tell me more of this painting's history. A curse, it does not appear from nowhere. There must be a story." Lord Ashford leaned back, his eyes distant. "It's an old tale, Monsieur Poirot, from 1642. The artist, Edmund Varnley, was a recluse, half mad, they say. He painted the lady in crimson for his lover, a noblewoman named Lady Eleanor. She was beautiful, fiery, but betrayed by her family, married off to another man. The story goes she died soon after, some say by poison, others by her own hand. Varnley poured his grief into the painting, and ever since, it's brought bad luck. Owners lost fortunes, fell ill or worse. The last owner, a merchant in Bristol, went bankrupt and vanished. I bought it at auction, thinking it a bargain." Clara's voice trembled. "And now it's here, bringing its curse to us. I heard whispers last night, outside my room. I swear it was her, Lady Eleanor. Hastings, ever gallant, patted her. Hand now, Miss Clara, It was probably just the wind. These old houses creak and groan. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Whispers, Mademoiselle Clara. Describe them, s'il vous plaît. Clara hesitated, her cheeks pale, soft, like a woman's. Voice, but I couldn't make out the words. It came from the hall, near the gallery. I was too scared to look. Lady Beatrice scoffed. Clara, you're letting your imagination run wild. Next, you'll say you saw a ghost. Perhaps she did, Poirot said mildly, making everyone pause. Or perhaps someone wishes us to believe in ghosts. Tell me, has anyone else heard? These whispers. The table fell silent. Grayson cleared his throat. The maids, sir. They've talked of noises, footsteps, murmurs near the gallery at night. They won't go there alone now. Charles slammed his glass down. This is absurd. You're all feeding this nonsense. It's just a painting, not some haunted relic. Poirot tilted his head. And yet, Monsieur Charles, a chandelier falls, a maid tumbles, a stable boy is hurt. Coincidence, perhaps, but Poirot does not believe in coincidence. There is always a reason. Dinner continued, but the mood was sour. Poirot asked about the painting's purchase, learning Lord Ashford outbid a rival collector, a woman, named Madame Dubois, who was furious to lose it. The name stuck in Poirot's mind, a possible outsider with a motive. He also noted Evelyn's silence, her fingers twisting her napkin, and Charles's quick glances at his father, as if hiding something. After dinner, Poirot and Hastings were shown to the gallery again. The painting glowed under the moonlight, streaming through the windows, its crimson dress almost pulsing. Hastings shivered. I don't like it, Poirot. It's as if she's watching us. Poirot stepped closer, his small hands clasped behind his back. He examined the frame, running, his fingers along its edges. Something caught his azure faint scratch, barely visible, near the inscription. Curious, he murmured. This frame, it has been tampered with, perhaps. Tampered, Hastings said. What, you think someone's been messing with it? Perhaps, mon ami, or perhaps it hides something more than paint. We shall see. As they spoke, a soft thud came from the hall. Hastings spun around. What was that? Poirot held up a hand, listening. Another thud, then a faint rustle, like fabric brushing stone. He moved silently to the door, peering into the darkened hall. A shadow flitted past, too quick to identify. Quickly, Hastings, he whispered. They hurried into the hall, but it was empty, save for a single black feather lying on the floor. Hastings picked it up, frowning. A bird got in, maybe. Poirot took the feather, twirling it between his fingers. A bird, or something more deliberate. This feather, it is clean, freshly placed. Someone wishes to play games with Poirot. Back in their rooms, Poirot sat at a small desk, jotting notes in his neat handwriting. Hastings paced, restless. What's your game plan, old boy? You think this curse is real? Poirot chuckled. A curse, Hastings. None. The only curse is the human heart, greed, fear, deception. This painting, it is a magnet for such things. The black cat, the whispers, the feather, these are not spirits, but signs of a plan. Someone in this house, or perhaps beyond it, wants us to believe in the curse. But why? That is the question. Hastings flopped onto his bed. Well, I hope you figure it out before that chandelier business happens again. Gives me the creeps. Poirot smiled, his eyes bright. Fear not, mon ami. The little grey cells, they are already at work. Tomorrow we observe, we listen, and we find the truth behind the lady in crimson. Chapter 3. The first clue. The morning mist clung to Ashford Manor like a ghostly shawl, softening the sharp edges of its stone walls. Hercule Poirot stood at his bedroom window, his small hands clasped behind his back, his green eyes scanning the Berkshire hills. The air was crisp, scented with damp earth and wood smoke, but Poirot's mind was far from the peaceful countryside. The mystery of the lady in crimson, the painting said to curse its owners, with misfortune had taken root in his little grey cells. The fallen chandelier, the whispers in the night, the black feather found in the hall, they were not the work of spirits, but of a human hand, clever and cunning. Poirot was certain of it. Captain Hastings, still in his pyjamas, yawned loudly from his bed across the room. "Poirot, old chap, you're up early. Dreaming of that creepy painting, were you?" Poirot turned, his moustache perfectly waxed despite the hour. "Dreaming, mon ami, non nan." Poirot does not dream when there is a puzzle to solve. The painting, it is no mere decoration. It hides a secret, and today we shall uncover the first piece of it. Hastings rubbed his eyes, sitting up. "Secret? You mean that scratched frame you found last night? Or that feather business? I still say a bird got in." Poirot smiled faintly. "A bird, perhaps, but one with a purpose. Come, dress quickly." The household stirs, and Poirot must observe them in the light of day. Breakfast was served in the dining room, the same grand space where last night's tense dinner had unfolded. The long oak table gleamed under sunlight streaming through tall windows, but the mood was as heavy as the silver cutlery. Lord Reginald Ashford sat at the head, his face drawn, sipping coffee with a trembling hand. Lady Beatrice, his wife, buttered her toast with sharp, precise movements, her eyes darting to her husband as if gauging his mood. Charles Ashford, their son, slouched in his chair, ignoring his eggs and reading a newspaper with a scowl. Evelyn, Charles's wife, picked at her food, her blonde hair catching the light, her face pale and tired. Clara, the niece, sat quietly, her hands folded, her eyes red as if she'd barely slept. Mr. Grayson, the butler, moved like a shadow, refilling cups with silent grace. Poirot, seated beside Hastings, noted every detail, the way Charles avoided his father's gaze. Evelyn's nervous glance at the door, Clara's tight grip on her napkin. The family was a tapestry of secrets, each thread pulling at the others. He sipped his tisane, a warm herbal tea, and broke the silence. "A fine morning, Lord Ashford. Tell me, have there been more incidents since last night?" Lord Ashford set his cup down, his voice low. "Nothing new, Monsieur Poirot, but the staff are jumpy. The maids refuse to clean the gallery. They say they saw that black cat again near the painting." Clara gasped, her fork clattering. "I knew it. I saw it too, last night, slinking past my door. It's a sign, I tell you. The curse is real." Charles slammed his newspaper down. "For heaven's sake, Clara, stop this nonsense. It's just a stray cat. You're making everyone hysterical." Lady Beatrice's voice was icy. "Charles, mind your tone. Clara's frightened, and with good reason. This house hasn't been right since that painting arrived." Evelyn spoke softly, almost a whisper. "Maybe we should cover it again. It feels wrong, having it uncovered." Poirot tilted his head, his eyes bright. "And you, Madame Evelyn, what do you feel when you see the lady in crimson?" Evelyn hesitated, her fingers twisting her napkin. "It's beautiful, but It's like she's watching you, judging you. I don't like it." Hastings, ever eager to comfort, leaned toward Clara. "Now, Miss Clara, don't fret. Poirot's here, and he'll sort this out. Won't you, old boy?" Poirot nodded, his moustache twitching. "Oui, Captain Hastings. But to sort, one must first understand. Lord Ashford, with your permission, I should like to examine the gallery again and speak with the staff about this black cat." Lord Ashford nodded wearily. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot. Do whatever you must. I just want peace in my home." After breakfast, Poirot and Hastings followed Grayson to the gallery, their footsteps echoing in the vast hall. The chandeliers. Wreckage had been cleared, but the floor bore faint scratches where crystals had fallen. The gallery itself was dim, its tall windows half-shuttered, casting long shadows across the paintings. The lady in crimson dominated the far end, its subject a woman in a vivid red gown seeming to glow in the gloom. Her dark eyes, sharp and knowing, followed them as they approached, and even Hastings shivered. "Blasted eerie," he muttered. "No wonder the maids are scared." Poirot ignored the comment, his small frame moving with purpose. He circled the painting, his eyes scanning every inch the crimson dress. The delicate hands, the faint Latin inscription, Que Feliz Ni. He paused at the frame, where he'd noticed a scratch the night before. Kneeling, he pulled a small magnifying glass from his pocket, peering closely. The scratch was deeper than he'd thought, running along the frame's edge, as if someone had pried at it with a tool. "Most curious," Poirot murmured. "This is no accident, Hastings. The frame, it has been opened, perhaps to hide or retrieve something." Hastings frowned. "Hide something? Like what? A treasure?" Poirot stood, dusting his knees. Treasure, secrets, or simply a trick there? Possibilities, or many. But this scratch, it is our first clue. It tells Poirot that the painting is more than it seems. As they spoke, a soft meow broke the silence. Hastings spun around, his hand on his heart. Good grief, there's that cat. A sleek black cat sat in the doorway, its yellow eyes glinting. Its tail flicked slowly, like a metronome, and it stared at them without blinking. Poirot approached, his movements slow, but the cat darted away, vanishing down the hall. Hastings let out a breath. Creepy little beast. No wonder Clara's spooked. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Spooked, oui, but why does this cat appear so often? And always near the painting? It is no stray, I think. Someone brings it here, or lures it to feed the tale of the curse. They followed the cat's path, finding nothing but a faint paw print in the dust near a side door. Poirot knelt again, examining it. "Fresh," he said. "This cat was here moments ago. And this door it leads outside, does it not, Monsieur Grayson?" Grayson, who had been hovering nearby, nodded. "Yes, sir, to the garden. It's often left ajar for the staff." Poirot pushed the door open, revealing a gravel path lined with roses, their petals drooping in the mist. He scanned the ground, finding more paw prints leading to a hedge, but no sign of the cat. "A garden cat, perhaps," he said, "but one with a role in this mystery. We shall keep watch for it." Back inside, Poirot requested to speak with the maids. Grayson led them to the kitchen, a warm, bustling room smelling of fresh bread. Two maids, Molly and Jane, stood wiping their hands on aprons, their faces nervous. Molly, the younger, spoke first, her voice trembling. "We don't go near the gallery, sir. Not after what we saw." "And what did you see?" Poirot asked, his tone gentle, Jane, older and bolder, answered, "That cat, sir, black as night, sitting right under that painting, staring at us. And the noises, whispers, like a woman crying. It's that Lady Eleanor, the one in the painting. She's angry, mark my words." Poirot nodded, his face calm. "And when did you first see this cat?" Molly bit her lip. "A week ago, sir. Right after the chandelier fell. It was in the hall, then it ran to the gallery. We've seen it 3 times since." Hastings leaned forward. "And these whispers, when do you hear them?" "At night," Sir Jane said. "Always late, when the house is quiet. It comes from the gallery, or near it. We lock our doors now." Poirot thanked them, his mind turning. Whispers, a cat, a scratched frame, these were threads in a web, spun by someone with a purpose. He and Hastings returned to the gallery, where Clara stood alone, staring at the painting. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I came to look at it, to see if it's really her, Lady Eleanor. I feel her presence, I swear." Hastings, ever kind, patted her shoulder. "Now, Miss Clara, it's just a painting. Poirot will get to the bottom of this." Poirot studied Clara, noting her trembling hands, her earnest tone. Was she truly frightened, or playing a part? "Mademoiselle Clara," he said, "tell me of these noises you hear. Every detail, s'il vous plaît." Clara hugged herself, glancing at the painting. "It's always at night, after midnight. Soft whispers, like someone's talking far away. Last night I thought I heard my name, Clara, Clara, but when I opened my door, no one was there. And then I saw the cat, its eyes glowing in the dark." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Your name, you say? Most interesting. And this cat, where did it go?" "Down the hall, toward the gallery. I didn't follow. I was too scared." Poirot nodded, filing the information away. He asked Clara to return to her room, promising to investigate. Alone with Hastings, he paced the gallery, his small shoes clicking on the floor. The cat, the whispers, the painting, they are connected, Hastings, but not by a curse. Someone orchestrates these events to frighten or distract. But why? Hastings scratched his head. To scare Lord Ashford into selling the painting, maybe. That Madame Dubois woman wanted it, didn't she? Perhaps, Poirot said. Or perhaps the motive lies closer to home. The family, they are not united. Charles is angry, Evelyn is nervous, Clara is afraid. And Lord Ashford, he hides something, I think. The day wore on, with Poirot and Hastings observing the household. Charles argued with his father in the study, their voices loud enough to carry something about money and debts. Evelyn spent hours in the garden, alone, her face troubled. Clara stayed in her room, refusing to join the family for lunch. Lady Beatrice managed the staff with a firm hand, but Poirot caught her staring at the gallery door, as if dreading what lay beyond, in the afternoon. Poirot examined the chandelier's remains, stored in a shed. The rope, cut cleanly, confirmed his suspicion of sabotage. He kept this to himself, not wanting to alarm the family yet. Instead, he focused on the painting, returning to the gallery with a small notebook, sketching its details, the inscription, the scratch, the frames, ornate carvings. As evening fell, the manor grew quiet, the mist thickening outside. Poirot and Hastings joined the family for tea in the drawing room, where a fire crackled, casting warm light on the tense faces. Lord Ashford spoke little, his eyes fixed on his cup. Lady Beatrice complained about the maid's gossip, calling it foolish. Charles drank brandy, his mood dark. Evelyn knitted, her needles clicking too fast. Clara sat by the window, staring into the fog. Poirot broke the silence. Lord Ashford, this Madame Dubois, the collector who bid against you, you know her well. Lord Ashford frowned. Not well. She's French, wealthy, obsessed with rare art. She wrote to me after the auction, offering to buy the painting, but I refused. She was insistent. Insistent, Poirot repeated, his eyes bright. And has she contacted you since? No, Lord Ashford said, but his hesitation caught Poirot's attention. Clara spoke up, her voice small. I saw a woman in the village last week, near the church. She wore a dark cloak, and she asked me about the manor. I thought it was odd. Hastings leaned forward. Good heavens, Clara, why didn't you say so? I didn't think it mattered, Clara said, tears in her eyes. But now, with the cat and the noises, Poirot raised a hand, calming her. It matters, mademoiselle. Everything matters. We shall look into this woman. As tea ended, a scream pierced the air, coming from the hall. Everyone froze, then rushed out, Poirot leading the way. Molly, the young maid, stood trembling, pointing at the gallery door. The cat, she cried. It was there, and then I heard it, a voice, whispering my name. Poirot moved swiftly, entering the gallery. The painting stood untouched, but on the floor, near its frame, lay a single black feather, identical to the one from the night before. Hastings gasped. Another feather. This is getting uncanny. Poirot picked it up, his face calm. Uncanny, Nan, deliberate, This feather, like the cat, is placed for us to find. Someone plays a game, but Poirot is no fool. He turned to Molly, who was sobbing in Clara's arms. Mademoiselle Molly, tell me exactly what you heard. It was a woman's voice, Molly said, her words tumbling out, soft, like a hiss. It said, Molly, leave this place. I ran, sir, I couldn't stay. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The whispers, the cat, the feathers, they were staged. But with what purpose? To drive the household to panic, to force Lord Ashford to sell, or to hide something darker. The chapter continues with Poirot questioning the family, noting their reactions, Charles's anger, Evelyn's silence, Clara's fear, Lady Beatrice's skepticism. He inspects the gallery again, finding a faint smudge of dirt near the frame, suggesting someone recently touched it. He learns from Grayson that the mysterious visitor Clara saw matches Madame Dubois's description, deepening her as a suspect. At night, Poirot sets a watch in the hall, hoping to catch the whisperer, but hears only silence. The chapter ends with Poirot standing before the lady in crimson, whispering, You, Madame, are the heart of this mystery. But Poirot shall uncover your truth, feather by feather. Chapter 4. A shocking murder. The night wrapped Ashford Manor in a thick, silent fog, muffling the world outside. Hercule Poirot sat in his room, a small lamp casting soft light on his notebook, where he jotted thoughts in his neat, precise handwriting. The mystery of the lady, in crimson the painting blamed for the manor's string of accidents, had grown darker with each passing hour. The scratched frame, the black cat, the whispers, the feathers, they were no curse, Poirot was certain, but the work of a clever mind weaving fear to hide a purpose. Captain Hastings, sprawled on his bed, snored softly, his tie loosened, his face peaceful despite the manor's unease. Poirot envied his friend's ability to sleep. His own little grey cells buzzed with questions. A sharp scream shattered the quiet, slicing through the manor like a knife. Poirot leaped to his feet, his heart steady but his senses alert. Hastings jolted awake, blinking. Good heavens, Poirot, what was that? Trouble, mon ami, Poirot said, already pulling on his coat. Quickly, to the source. They rushed into the hall, their footsteps echoing on the cold marble. The scream had come from the gallery, where the lady in crimson hung. The manor was awake now, doors opening, voices calling. Lady Beatrice Ashford appeared, her nightgown hastily covered by a shawl, her face pale. Clara, the niece, followed, clutching a candle, her eyes wide with fear. Charles Ashford stumbled out, his shirt untucked, his hair mussed. Evelyn, his wife, trailed behind, her hands trembling. Mr. Grayson, the butler, was already there, holding a lantern, his face grim. "Where is Lord Ashford?" Poirot asked, his voice sharp. Grayson pointed to the gallery door, which was shut tight. "The scream came from there, sir. I tried the handle, it's locked." Poirot's eyes narrowed. Locked. Most interesting. "Stand back, all of you." Hastings, ever practical, pushed at the door, but it wouldn't budge. "Solid as a vault," he muttered. "We'll need a key." Grayson shook his head. "Lord Ashford keeps the only key, sir. He locks the gallery at night, ever since the painting arrived." Lady Beatrice gasped, clutching Clara. "Reginald. He's in there, isn't he? Oh God, the curse." Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. "Madame, there is no time for curses. Monsieur Grayson, fetch a tool, something to break the lock." Grayson returned with a heavy iron poker. Charles, impatient, grabbed it and struck the lock, splintering the wood around it. The door swung open, revealing the gallery, dim and cold, lit only by moonlight streaming through tall windows. The lady in crimson loomed at the far end, its subject's eyes glinting, as if watching the chaos unfold. And there, crumpled on the floor beneath the painting, lay Lord Reginald Ashford. A dagger protruded from his chest, its handle smeared with red paint, the same crimson as the lady's gown. Blood pooled beneath him, staining the marble. His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, his face frozen in shock. Clara screamed, burying her face in Lady Beatrice's shoulder. Evelyn swayed, clutching Charles's arm. Charles stared, his jaw tight, his hands shaking. Lady Beatrice's voice was a whisper. "Reginald, no." Hastings knelt beside the body, checking for a pulse, though he knew it was hopeless. "He's gone, Poirot, stabbed clean through." Poirot stepped forward, his small frame commanding. "The room, do not touch anything, Hastings. This is a crime scene, and Poirot must see it as it is." He circled the body, his eyes taking in every detail, the dagger, the paint, the locked door, the untouched windows. The gallery was sealed. No other exits, no signs of a struggle. Lord Ashford's hands were empty, his clothes neat except for the blood. The painting above him seemed untouched, its crimson lady serene, almost mocking. A locked room. Poirot murmured, his mustache twitching. The classic puzzle, Nan. A man dead, a door locked, no one seen entering or leaving. Yet someone was here, and they left their mark. Hastings pointed to the dagger. "That paint on the handle, it's the same as the painting, isn't it? Could it be part of the curse?" Poirot's eyes flashed. "Akauji, Hastings. Nan, this is no work of spirits. This paint, it is a clue, placed to confuse or to point. But to what? Lady Beatrice sank into a chair, her voice breaking. Who would do this? Reginald was a good man. He didn't deserve this. Charles's voice was rough. Father had enemies, that Madame du Boisy wanted the painting. Maybe she, enough. Charles, Evelyn snapped, her voice sharp for the first time. Don't start accusing people. We don't know anything yet. Clara, still trembling, whispered, It's the curse. I told you, Aunt Beatrice. The painting did this. Lady Eleanor's angry. Poirot turned to her, his tone gentle but firm. Mademoiselle Clara, the painting is canvas and colour, nothing more. The anger here is human, and Poirot shall find its source. Monsieur Grayson, who else was in the manor tonight? Grayson stood straight, his face pale but composed. Only the family, the staff, and you, sir. The maids, Molly and Jane, were in their rooms. The cook and stable boys sleep in the servants' quarters, outside. No one else. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. A locked room, a painted dagger, a dead lord. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture was still blurred. He knelt beside the body, examining the dagger. Its blade was sharp, old, with an ornate handle, the kind kept in a manor's collection. The red paint was fresh, wet, smeared as if applied in haste. He looked up at the painting, noting its frame. The scratch he'd seen before was still there, but no new marks. Hastings, Poirot said, fetch my notebook from our room. We must record everything. As Hastings hurried off, Poirot addressed the family. You will all remain in the drawing room. No one leaves the manor until Poirot has searched this room. Grayson summoned the police, but tell them to wait until I am ready. Lady Beatrice nodded, leading Clara and Evelyn away. Charles lingered, his eyes on his father's body, then followed, his shoulders slumped. Grayson hesitated, then left too. Make the call. Alone in the gallery, Poirot moved with precision, his small hands steady. He checked the windows locked, no signs of tampering. The walls, solid stone, hid no secret doors, at least none he could find yet. The floor around Lord Ashford showed only his blood, no footprints, no drag marks. He turned to the painting, staring into the eyes of the Crimson Lady. You saw it all, madame, he whispered. What do you hide? A secret worth killing for? Hastings returned, notebook in hand, his face grim. Police are on their way, Poirot. What do you make of it? How'd the killer get in and out? Poirot took the notebook, sketching the scene, the body, the dagger, the painting's position. A locked room is not magic, Hastings. It is a trick, a puzzle. The killer entered, killed, and left, all without breaking the lock. There is a way, and Poirot shall find it. The police arrived, led by Inspector Davies, a gruff man with a bushy moustache and a nonsense air. He knew Poirot by reputation and agreed to let him lead the initial investigation, though he stationed constables at the manor's entrances. Poirot directed them to photograph the scene, then gathered the family in the drawing room, where a fire burned low, casting flickering shadows. Madame et Messieurs, Poirot began, standing before them, his voice steady. Lord Ashford has been murdered in a room locked from the inside. This is no accident, no curse. It is a crime, planned and executed with care. I must know where each of you was tonight, between midnight and the scream. Lady Beatrice spoke first, her voice trembling. I was in my room, asleep. I woke when I heard the scream. Reginald. He often worked late in his study, but I didn't know he was in the gallery. Charles rubbed his neck, his eyes red. I was in my room too. Couldn't sleep, so I was reading. Didn't hear anything until the scream. Evelyn nodded. Same. I was with Charles in our room. I heard nothing until Molly screamed. Clara, clutching a handkerchief, whispered, I was in my room. I couldn't sleep, thinking of the painting. I heard the scream and ran out. Grayson, standing by the door, added, I was in my quarters, sir, until the scream woke me. I reached the gallery first and found the door locked. Poirot's eyes moved from face to face, reading their expressions, grief, fear, anger, guilt. Someone was lying, or perhaps all were hiding something. And the key, he asked. Lord Ashford's key to the gallery, where is it? Grayson frowned. It was on his chain, sir. He always carried it. Poirot returned to the gallery, where Inspector Davies had found the key, still on Lord Ashford's watch chain, tucked in his pocket. The lock, though broken by Charles, showed no signs of being picked. The mystery deepened. A killer who entered a locked room, killed, and left without a trace. The chapter continues with Poirot questioning the maids, who confirmed they were asleep and heard nothing until the scream. He examines the dagger, recognizing it from a display in the Manners library, suggesting the killer used a weapon close at hand. The red paint on the handle intrigues him. It matches the painting's crimson, but why? To frame someone, or to fuel the curse narrative? He inspects the gallery again, finding a faint smudge of paint on the floor, near the frame's scratch, hinting at recent activity. Suspicion falls on each family member: Charles's debts, Evelyn's unease, Clara's fear, Lady Beatrice's. Controlled, but Poirot also considers Madame Dubois, the rival collector. The chapter ends with Poirot standing before the lady in crimson, whispering, You point the way, madame, but to whom? Poirot shall follow your lead. Chapter 5. The suspects assembled. The dawn broke over Ashford Manor, pale and grey, as if the sun itself mourned Lord Reginald Ashford's death. The grand house, once proud with its ivy-covered walls and gleaming windows, now felt like a tomb, its halls heavy with grief and fear. Hercule Poirot stood in the gallery, his small frame dwarfed by the towering presence of the lady in crimson. The paintings subject a woman in a vivid red gown. Her dark eyes, sharp and knowing, seemed to mock the chaos below, where Lord Ashford's body had lain just hours ago, a dagger in his chest, its handle smeared with crimson paint. The locked door, the untouched windows. The key still on Lord Ashford's chain. It was a puzzle that delighted Poirot's little grey cells. For a locked room, murder was a challenge worthy of his genius. Captain Hastings paced nearby, his face drawn, his tie askew from a sleepless night. Poirot, old chap, this is a grim business. A man stabbed in a locked room, that cursed painting staring down at him. It's enough to make anyone believe in ghosts. Poirot's moustache twitched, his green eyes bright. Ghosts, mon ami. Nan, Nan, the dead do not wield daggers. This is the work of a living hand, clever and bold. The painting, it is no curse, but a stage for human greed or vengeance. Come, we must speak with the family. The truth lies in their words, their glances, their secrets. They left the gallery, where constables under Inspector Davies guarded the scene, and headed to the drawing-room. The household was gathered there, summoned by Poirot's request, their faces a mix of shock, sorrow, and suspicion. Lady Beatrice. Ashford sat stiffly on a velvet sofa, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes red but dry, as if tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. Charles Ashford, the late Lord's son, stood by the fireplace, his broad shoulders tense, his fingers gripping a brandy glass despite the early hour. Evelyn, his wife, sat apart, her blonde hair pinned tightly, her hands twisting a handkerchief. Clara, the niece, huddled in an armchair, her face pale, her eyes darting to the door as if expecting another scream. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood by the wall, his face a mask of calm, though his hands betrayed a slight tremble as he adjusted. His cuffs, Inspector Davies, a burly man with a bushy moustache, stood near Poirot, his notebook open. Monsieur Poirot, I've got my men searching the grounds, but this locked-room business is a devil of a puzzle. We're counting on you to make sense of it. Poirot bowed slightly. Mercy, Inspector. The puzzle, it is complex, but not impossible. The lock, the dagger, the paint, they speak to Poirot, and soon they will name the killer. He turned to the family, his voice clear and steady. Madame et messieurs, the death of Lord Ashford is a tragedy, but it is no accident, no curse. Someone entered the gallery, killed him, and left, all within a locked room. I must know more about each of your movements, your thoughts, your secrets. We begin with you, Lady Beatrice. Lady Beatrice straightened, her voice cold but controlled. I told you last night, Monsieur Poirot. I was asleep in my room until the scream woke me. Reginald often stayed up late, working in his study or visiting the gallery. He was obsessed with that painting, despite its dangers. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Obsessed, madame. In what way? She hesitated, glancing at Charles. He believed it was valuable, not just for its beauty, but for some hidden worth. He talked of selling it, though it pained him. He thought it would secure our future. Charles slammed his glass on the mantel, his face flushed. Sell it. That's news to me. Father loved that painting, called it a masterpiece. He'd never part with it, curse or no curse. Poirot tilted his head. And you, Monsieur Charles, did you agree with keeping it? Charles scowled. I thought it was trouble from the start. All this talk of curses rubbish, but it was worth a fortune. Selling it could have helped things. Helped? Poirot pressed, his tone gentle but sharp. Helped what, precisely? Charles shifted, his eyes darting away. The estate? It's not as grand as it looks. Father had debts, big ones. I told him to sell the painting months ago, but he wouldn't listen. Evelyn's voice was soft, almost a whisper. Charles, please, don't speak ill of him now. Poirot turned to her, his gaze piercing. Madame Evelyn, you were in your room with Monsieur Charles last night. Did you hear anything unusual before the scream? Evelyn's fingers tightened on her handkerchief. No, nothing. I was asleep. The scream woke us both. Clara, her voice trembling, spoke up. I heard something earlier, not the scream, but before, around midnight. Whispers again, like last night. I thought it was my imagination, but now... She trailed off, tears in her eyes. Poirot nodded, his face calm. Whispers, Mademoiselle Clara, always the whispers. And you, Monsieur Grayson, you were first at the gallery door. Did you hear or see anything before the scream? Grayson's voice was steady, but his eyes flickered. No, sir. I was in my quarters, asleep. The scream brought me running. I tried the door, found it locked, and waited for you. Poirot paced. Slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. A locked door, a dagger with paint, a family with secrets. And this painting, the lady in crimson, at the heart of it all. Tell me, Lady Beatrice, who else knew of Lord Ashford's plan to sell the painting? Lady Beatrice frowned. Only the family, and perhaps Grayson. Reginald was private about such matters, but that woman, Madame Dubois, she wrote to him, offering a huge sum. He refused her. Poirot's moustache twitched. Madame Dubois, oui, a name that keeps returning. We shall speak of her later. For now, I must see Lord Ashford's study. His papers may hold answers. The family dispersed, Lady Beatrice leading Clara to her room, Charles and Evelyn retreating to theirs. Grayson guided Poirot and Hastings to the study, a wood-panelled room lined with books and a heavy oak desk. A portrait of a stern Ashford ancestor hung above the fireplace, its eyes as piercing as the Crimson Lady's. Poirot began searching, his small hands deftly opening drawers, flipping through papers. Hastings, less patient, poked at shelves, muttering about the creepy atmosphere. Poirot, look at this. Hastings held up a letter, its envelope bearing a French postmark. It's from Madame Dubois, dated 2 weeks ago. Poirot took it, his eyes scanning the elegant handwriting. Cher Lord Ashford, he read aloud. I urge you to reconsider my offer for the lady in crimson. Its value is beyond mere money. It holds secrets you cannot fathom. Name your price, and I shall meet it. Hastings whistled. She's desperate for it. Think she could have, done it? Poirot folded the letter, tucking it into his pocket. Possible, mon ami, but unlikely. A collector, however obsessed, does not kill so boldly in a locked room. No, the answer is closer within these walls. He continued searching, finding a ledger detailing the estate's finances, debts, piled high, as Charles had hinted. Another paper caught his eye, a note in Lord Ashford's hand, scribbled hastily. The painting hides more than beauty. The frame check, the frame. Heart quickened. The scratched frame, the paint on the dagger, were they linked to this cryptic note? Hastings, he said. We returned to the gallery. The painting calls to Poirot. They hurried back, passing a constable who nodded grimly. The gallery was quiet now, the painting's crimson glow almost pulsing in the dim light. Poirot knelt by the frame, his magnifying glass out, examining the scratch he'd noted before. It was deeper than he'd thought, and near it, a tiny splinter of wood protruded, as if the frame had been pried open and hastily closed. Someone has tampered with this, Poirot said. Not once, but perhaps many times. The frame, it holds a secret, just as Lord Ashford suspected. Hastings frowned. A secret? Like what? A hidden compartment. Perhaps, Poirot said, running his fingers along the frame's edge. He pressed gently, feeling for a catch, but found none. It is clever, this hiding place, but Poirot is more clever. As they worked, a soft meow echoed through the gallery. Hastings spun around, his face pale. That blasted cat again. The black cat sat in the doorway, its yellow eyes fixed on them, its tail flicking slowly. Poirot approached, his movements calm, but the cat darted away, vanishing into the hall. Hastings shook his head. It's like it's taunting us, Poirot. Taunting Nen, Poirot said, guiding, perhaps. This cat, it is no stray. Someone uses it to fuel the curse story. But who? They followed the cat's path, finding another black feather near the side door to the garden, identical to the others. Poirot picked it up, his eyes narrowing. Always the feathers, always the cat. They are props in a play, Hastings, staged to distract us from the truth. Back in the drawing room, Poirot gathered the family again, his presence commanding despite his small stature. Madame et messieurs, the painting's frame has been tampered with. Lord Ashford knew this, and it may have led to his death. Who among you has touched the painting? Silence fell, heavy and tense. Charles broke it, his voice rough. I never went near it. Father was always in there, fussing over it. Evelyn nodded. I only looked at it once. It frightened me. Clara's voice was a whisper. I stayed away after the whisper started. I couldn't bear it. Lady Beatrice's eyes flashed. Reginald handled it himself. He didn't trust anyone else. Grayson cleared his throat. I dusted the frame, sir, as part of my duties. But I never opened it. Poirot's gaze lingered on each face, searching for a crack in their stories. Someone was lying, or perhaps they all were, hiding pieces of the truth. He dismissed them, keeping his thoughts to himself, and returned to the study with Hastings, where he found a small key hidden in a desk drawer, the gallery key, but something smaller, perhaps for the frame. Chapter 6. The hidden Wilther fog had lifted from Ashford Manor, but a darker cloud hung over its stone walls. Grief, fear, and suspicion. Hercule Poirot stood in the study, his small hands sifting through Lord Reginald Ashford's papers, his green eyes sharp as he hunted for clues. The murder of Lord Ashford, stabbed in the locked gallery beneath the Lady in Crimson, had turned the grand house into a maze of secrets. The painting, blamed for a curse that brought misfortune, was no supernatural force, Poirot knew, but a magnet for human greed and deceit. The scratched frame, the dagger smeared with crimson paint, the black cat, the feathers, they were pieces of a puzzle, and now a small key found in the desk drawer hinted at a new piece. Captain Hastings leaned against a bookshelf, rubbing his eyes, weary from a night without sleep. Poirot, old chap, Hastings said, stifling a yawn. You've been at this for hours. Papers, keys, that creepy painting house, it all fit together. Poirot's moustache twitched, his voice calm but firm. Patience, mon ami. A puzzle is solved, one piece at a time. This key, it is small, not for a door, but perhaps for the painting's frame. And these papers, they speak of motives. Lord Ashford's death was no accident, but a plan, and Poirot shall uncover it. A soft knock interrupted them. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood in the doorway, his face pale but composed. Monsieur Poirot, the family is in the drawing-room, as you requested. Inspector Davies is there too, asking questions. Poirot nodded, slipping the key into his pocket. Mercy, Monsieur Grayson. Come, Hastings, we must observe the family. Their faces, their words, they hide the truth, but not from Poirot. The drawing-room was warm, a fire crackling in the hearth, but the air was thick with tension. Lady Beatrice Ashford sat on a velvet sofa, her posture rigid, her hands clasped like a shield. Charles Ashford stood by the window, his broad frame tense, his eyes red from brandy or grief or both. Evelyn, his wife, sat nearby, her blonde hair loose, her fingers picking at her shawl. Clara, the niece, huddled in an armchair, her face pale, clutching a handkerchief as if it could ward off fear. Inspector Davies, his bushy moustache twitching, stood by the fireplace, his notebook open, his voice gruff as he questioned them about the night of the murder. Poirot entered, his small frame commanding attention despite the gloom. Et messieurs, he said, his voice clear, the murder of Lord Ashford is a crime of cunning. A locked room, a painted dagger, a key in his pocket. Yet the killer walked among us. Today we search for motive. Who gained from his death? Lady Beatrice's voice was sharp. Monsieur Poirot, how dare you suggest we his family would harm him? Reginald was loved, respected. Charles snorted, his glass clinking against the window. Loved. Father was stubborn, always fussing over that painting. He ignored the debts piling up, ignored me when I begged him to sell it. Evelyn touched his arm, her voice soft. Charles, please, not now. Poirot's eyes flickered between them. Debts, Monsieur Charles. You mentioned them before. How heavy were they? Charles hesitated, his jaw tight. Heavy enough. The estate spin. Bleeding money, bad investments, old loans. Father thought the painting would fix it, but he wouldn't sell. Said it was too valuable. Clara's voice trembled. Valuable. It's cursed. It killed him. I know it did. Lady Eleanor's spirit. Enough, Clara. Lady Beatrice snapped. No more talk of curses. It's nonsense. Poirot tilted his head, his gaze gentle but piercing. Mademoiselle Clara, you believe the painting is dangerous. Why? Clara's eyes filled with tears. The whispers, the cat, the accident sand, now Uncle Reginald. It's her, the lady in the painting. She's angry. Hastings, ever kind, patted her hand. Now, Miss Clara, it's just a painting. Poirot will sort this out, won't you? Poirot nodded, his moustache twitching. We, Captain Hastings. But first, we must know more. Lady Beatrice, you said Lord Ashford planned to sell the painting. Who knew of this? Lady Beatrice frowned. Only us, his family, and Grayson. Perhaps he overheard things. Reginald kept it quiet, especially after Madame Dubois's letters. Poirot's eyes brightened. Madame Dubois, the collector. Her name returns, like a shadow. We shall speak of her soon. For now, I must see Lord Ashford's will. His death changes the estate. Nan. Inspector Davies cleared his throat. We haven't found a will yet, Monsieur Poirot. His solicitor's been called, but it'll take time. Poirot paced, his hands clasped behind his back. Time we do not have. A will, it reveals motive, money, power, revenge. We search now, in the study. He led Hastings and Grayson back to the study, leaving Davies to continue questioning. The family. The room was dim, its heavy curtains drawn, the air smelling of leather and ink. Poirot resumed his search, his fingers deftly opening drawers, flipping through ledgers. Hastings, less patient, rummaged through a cabinet, muttering about the endless paperwork. Poirot, look. Hastings held up a sealed envelope, tucked behind a stack of books. It's marked Will Prevet. Poirot took it, his heart quickening. The envelope was thick, its wax seal unbroken, bearing Lord Ashford's crest. He sliced it open with a letter opener, pulling out a single sheet of paper, written in Lord Ashford's firm hand. He read aloud, his voice steady. I, Reginald Ashford, being of sound mind, declare this, my last will. To my wife, Beatrice, I leave the manor and its furnishings. To my son Charles, I leave my investments, such as they are. To my niece, Clara, I leave the lady in crimson, for she alone understands its value. The rest of my estate, including all debts, to be settled by my solicitor. Hastings gasped. Good heavens, the painting to Clara. That's a shock. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A shock, oui, and a motive. Charles expected wealth, but the painting worth a fortune goes to Clara. This changes everything. Grayson, standing by the door, shifted slightly, his face unreadable. Lord Ashford was fond of Miss Clara, sir. She spent hours with him, talking about art. Poirot studied the butler, noting his calm tone. And you, Monsieur Grayson, did you know of this will? Grayson shook his head. No, sir. His lordship kept such matters private. Poirot folded the will, tucking it into his pocket. This document, it lights a fire under the family. We must show it to them, but carefully. Motives, they multiply like shadows. They returned to the drawing room, where the family sat in uneasy silence. Poirot held up the envelope, his voice commanding. Mesdames et messieurs, we have found Lord Ashford's will, written in his hand. It reveals his wishes and, perhaps, a reason for his death. Lady Beatrice's eyes widened. A will? Read it, Monsieur Poirot. He read it slowly, watching their faces. Lady Beatrice's lips tightened, her hands clenching. Charles's face flushed, his glass trembling. Evelyn gasped softly, glancing at her husband. Clara's eyes filled with tears, her voice a whisper. The painting, to me? Why? Charles exploded, slamming his glass down. Why? That's my inheritance. Father knew I needed money, not some cursed canvas. Clara, you've been cozying up to him, haven't you? Clara flinched, tears streaming. I didn't ask for it. I don't want it, it's dangerous. Evelyn's voice was sharp. Charles, stop it. You're scaring her. Lady Beatrice stood, her voice icy. Enough, all of you. Reginald made his choice. We respect it. Poirot's gaze moved from face to face, reading their anger, fear, and grief. The will had cracked the family's fragile unity, exposing raw motives: Charles's desperation, Clara's unexpected gain, Evelyn's tension, Lady Beatrice's control. He spoke calmly. This will, it changes nothing yet. The painting remains in the gallery, and the killer remains among us. I shall continue my search. As the family dispersed, Poirot pulled Hastings aside. The will, Hastings, it is a spark. Charles is angry, Clara is frightened, Evelyn hides something, and Lady Beatrice knows more than she says. Hastings frowned. What about Grayson? He's too calm, don't you think? Poirot nodded. The butler, he sees all, hears all. We shall watch him, but first we return to the painting. The frame, the key they call to Poirot. They headed to the gallery, where the lady in crimson stood under a constable's watch. The painting's crimson gown seemed to pulse in the dim light, its eyes following them. Poirot pulled out the small key, testing it along the frame's edge, near the scratch. It didn't fit, but he found a faint seam, barely visible, suggesting a hidden compartment. Curious, he murmured. The frame is a safe, but the lock is clever. This key, it is not the one we need. Hastings scratched his head. A compartment. For what? Money, jewels, or a secret worth killing for, Poirot said, his eyes bright. Lord Ashford knew, and it cost him his life. A soft meow broke the silence. The black cat appeared in the doorway, its yellow eyes glinting. Hastings groaned. That beast again. It's everywhere. Poirot approached, but the cat fled, leaving another black feather on the floor. He picked it up, his face grim. Always. The cat, always the feathers. They are a distraction, Hastings, but they point to someone in this house. Chapter 7. The Black Cat Returns. The morning light crept into Ashford Manor, pale and cold, as if reluctant to touch the house where death had struck. Hercule Poirot stood in the gallery, his small hands clasped behind his back, his green eyes fixed on the lady in crimson. The painting's subject a woman in a vivid red gown. Her dark eyes sharp with secret seemed to watch him, her presence a silent challenge. Lord Reginald Ashford's murder, stabbed in this locked room with a dagger smeared in crimson paint, had turned the manor into a web of fear and deceit. The hidden will, leaving the painting to Clara, had sparked anger and suspicion, while the scratched frame and a small key found in Lord Ashford's desk hinted at a secret worth killing for. Poirot's little grey cells hummed, piecing together the black cat, the feathers, the whispers, and now the possibility of a hidden compartment in the painting's frame. Captain Hastings, rubbing sleep from his eyes, joined him, his tie slightly crooked. "Poirot, old chap, you're up early again, still staring at that creepy painting. I swear those eyes follow you." Poirot's moustache twitched, his voice calm. "The eyes, mon ami, are but paint. It is the living who hide the truth. The frame, it holds a secret, Lord Ashford knew it, and it cost him his life. Today we shall find it." Hastings yawned, glancing at the painting. "That key you found, think it opens something in the frame?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, pulling the key from his pocket. "But the lock, it is clever. Come, we begin our work." They were interrupted by a soft knock. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood in the doorway, his face pale but steady. "Monsieur Poirot, breakfast is served. The family is in the dining room, though. The mood is heavy." Poirot nodded, tucking the key away. "Mercy, Monsieur Grayson. We shall join them. The family, they reveal more in their silence than their words." The dining room was grand, its long oak table set with silver and china, but the air was thick with grief. Lady Beatrice Ashford sat at one end, her posture stiff, her eyes red but dry, as if holding back a storm. Charles Ashford slouched across. From her, his face dark, a glass of brandy in hand despite the hour. Evelyn, his wife, picked at her toast, her blonde hair pinned tightly, her hands trembling slightly. Clara, the niece, sat quietly, her eyes fixed on her plate, her face pale as if she hadn't slept. The empty chair where Lord Ashford once sat loomed like a ghost. Poirot and Hastings took their seats. Poirot sipping his tisana, warm herbal tea he favoured while observing the family. The will, leaving the lady in crimson to Clara, had cracked their fragile unity, and Charles's anger simmered like a kettle ready to boil. Poirot broke the silence, his voice gentle but firm. "Mesdames et messieurs, the investigation continues. The painting's frame, it has been tampered with. Who among you has touched it?" Charles snorted, his voice rough. "Not me. Father was always fussing over it, locking the gallery like it was a bank vault." Evelyn's voice was soft. "I looked at it once, but I never touched it. It scared me." Clara's hands shook, her voice a whisper. "I stayed away after the whispers started. I couldn't bear those eyes." Lady Beatrice's lips tightened. Reginald handled it himself. He didn't trust anyone else, not even Grayson. Grayson, serving coffee, paused briefly. "I dusted the frame, madame, as part of my duties, nothing more." Poirot's gaze lingered on each face, searching for a flicker of guilt. And yet the frame bears a scratch, a sign of prying. Lord Ashford knew of a secret within it. This secret, it may have led to his death. Lady Beatrice frowned. A secret? What nonsense! It's just a painting, worth money, yes, but nothing more. Charles slammed his glass down. Money, that's the point, isn't it? Father left it to Clara, not me, when I'm drowning in his debts. She doesn't even want it. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I didn't ask for it, Charles. I don't want it, it's cursed. Evelyn touched Clara's hand, her voice soothing. Clara, he doesn't mean it. We're all upset. Poirot noted Evelyn's quick glance at Charles, a mix of fear and frustration. Madame Evelyn, you seem troubled. Is there something you wish to share? Evelyn hesitated, her fingers twisting her napkin. No, Monsieur Poirot, it's just this house, the murder, it's too much. Poirot nodded, filing her unease away. We shall return to the gallery. The painting, it calls to Poirot. After breakfast, Poirot and Hastings headed to the gallery, where a constable stood guard. The lady in crimson glowed in the morning light, its crimson gown almost pulsing. Its Latin inscription, Cave Felis Nigra, beware the black cat, a silent warning. Poirot pulled out his magnifying glass, examining the frame's scratch. The seam he'd noticed before was clearer now, a faint line suggesting a hidden panel. He tried the small key, but it didn't fit. Curious, he murmured. The lock is there, but this key is wrong. The frame, it hides something, Hastings. Hastings frowned. What, like a treasure? Why kill for it? Not treasure, perhaps, Poirot said, but a secret worth more than gold. Lord Note, check the frame, it was his last clue. As they spoke, a loud crash echoed from upstairs. Hastings spun around. Good grief, what now? Poirot's eyes narrowed. Quickly, mon ami. They rushed up the grand staircase, following the sound to Clara's room. The door was ajar, and Clara stood inside, trembling, pointing at a shattered vase on the floor. A heavy brass candlestick lay beside it, as if it had fallen from a shelf. It moved, Clara cried. I was reading, and it just fell right toward me. Hastings knelt, picking up a shard. Blimey, Clara, you're lucky it missed you. Poirot examined the shelf, his fingers tracing its edge. The candlestick's base had left a faint mark, not from falling, but from being pushed. This was no accident, he said softly. Someone staged this, to frighten or harm Mademoiselle Clara. Clara gasped, clutching her shawl. The curse. It's after me now, because of the will. Poirot's voice was calm. Nan, mademoiselle, not a curse, but a human hand. Tell me, who was near your room? Clara shook her head, tears streaming. I don't know, I was alone. But I heard footsteps earlier outside my door. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The black cat, the feathers, the whispers. And now this someone was weaving a tapestry of fear, using the painting's curse as a thread. He escorted Clara to the drawing room, where Lady Beatrice comforted her, while Charles and Evelyn watched, their faces unreadable. Back in the gallery, Poirot resumed his work, determined to unlock the frame's secret. He pressed along the seam, feeling for a catch, when a soft click sounded. A small panel, no bigger than a book, sprang open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a gold locket, its surface engraved with a rose, and a folded scrap of paper. Hastings gasped. Good heavens, Poirot, you've done it. Poirot lifted the locket, his fingers steady. He opened it, revealing a miniature portrait of a woman, dark hair, sharp eyes, a faint smile. The paper, yellowed with age, bore a single line in faded ink, for Eleanor, my heart forever cursed. Eleanor, Poirot murmured. The lady in the painting, perhaps. This locket, it is a clue to her story and to Lord Ashford's death. Hastings frowned. But why hide it? And who knew it was there? Lord Ashford knew, Poirot said, tucking the locket and paper into his pocket. And someone else, perhaps, who killed to protect or claim it. We must learn more of Lady Eleanor. They returned to the study, where Poirot searched for historical records. Among Lord Ashford's papers, he found a book on 17th century art with a passage about Edmund Varnley, the painter of the Lady in Crimson. It described Varnley's love for Lady Eleanor, a noble woman betrayed by her family, who died under mysterious circumstances, poison, some said, or a broken heart. The painting, created in her memory, was rumoured to hide a secret, though none knew what. Most interesting, Poirot said. The locket, it confirms the tale. But why kill for it now, centuries later? Hastings scratched his head. Maybe it's valuable. Or maybe it's about the curse someone believes it's real. Poirot chuckled softly. A Cauchy, Hastings. Nan, the curse is a mask worn by a killer to hide their face. The locket, it points to a motive: love, betrayal, or greed. As evening fell, the manor grew quiet, the air heavy with suspicion. Poirot gathered the family in the drawing-room, holding up the locket. Madame et Monsieur's, this was found in the painting's frame, hidden for centuries. It bears a portrait, perhaps of Lady Eleanor. Who among you knew of this? Lady Beatrice's eyes widened. A locket. Reginald never mentioned it. Charles scowled. Another secret. Father was full of them. Probably worth a fortune, and he left it to Clara. Clara shook her head, tears falling. I didn't know. I don't want anything from that painting. Evelyn's voice was sharp. Charles, stop it. You're making it worse. Grayson, standing by the door, spoke quietly. His lordship was researching the painting's history, sir. He spent hours in the library, reading old books. Poirot's gaze lingered on the butler. And you, Monsieur Grayson, did you see him with this locket? Grayson shook his head. No, sir. I only saw him with papers, notes about the painting. Poirot dismissed them, his mind turning. The locket was a new thread, linking the past to the present. But how? Was it a treasure, a symbol, or a clue to a deeper secret? He and Hastings returned to the gallery, where the black cat appeared again, sitting under the painting, its eyes glinting. Before Poirot could approach, it fled, leaving yet another feather. Blasted cat, Hastings muttered. It's like it's mocking us. Poirot picked up the feather, his face grim, mocking. Non-guiding we. This cat, it is a tool, used to scare and distract. But Poirot sees through the trick. Chapter 8. The art dealer's secret. The morning sun struggled through heavy clouds, casting a pale glow over Ashford Manor, where grief and fear clung to every corner. Hercule Poirot sat in the drawing-room, his small hands folded neatly, his green eyes sharp as he reviewed his notes. The murder of Lord Reginald Ashford, stabbed in the locked gallery beneath the Lady in Crimson, had turned the grand house into a maze of secrets. The painting, blamed for a curse that brought misfortune, was no supernatural force, Poirot knew, but a catalyst for human greed and deceit. The scratched frame, the dagger smeared with crimson paint, the black cat, the feathers, the hidden will. Leaving the painting to Clara, and now the locket with Lady Eleanor's portrait, they were threads in a tapestry, woven by a cunning hand. Captain Hastings, pacing by the fireplace, broke the silence, his voice heavy with frustration. Poirot, old chap, This case is a tangle, he said, rubbing his neck. A locked room, a painted dagger, a locket, and that blasted cat everywhere. Where do we even start? Poirot's moustache twitched, his voice calm but firm. We start, mon ami, with the paintings past. The locket, it points to Lady Eleanor, the woman in The Lady in Crimson. Her story holds the key to Lord Ashford's death. Today, we visit Mr. Langston, the art dealer who offered to buy the painting. He knows more than he writes in letters. Hastings frowned, pulling on his coat. Langston, think he's mixed up in this? Or that Madame Dubois woman, she's been hovering like a vulture. Poirot stood, adjusting his hat with care. Both, perhaps, but Poirot seeks facts, not guesses. We go to London to learn what secrets the art world hides. They informed Inspector Davies, who was still questioning the staff, and arranged for a car to take them to Reading Station. The drive through the misty Berkshire hills was quiet, the Manor's grim shadow fading behind them. At the station, they caught a train to London, the rattle of the carriage a steady backdrop to Poirot's thoughts. He clutched the locket in his pocket, its rose engraving pressing against his fingers, and reread Mr. Langston's letter, offering a fortune for the painting. The words hinted at more than mere knowledge of the painting's unique value, as Langston had written. In London, they navigated bustling streets to a narrow alley off Bond Street, where Langston's gallery stood, its sign faded but elegant. The shop was small, crammed with paintings, sculptures, and dusty books. The air thick with the scent of oil and varnish. Mr. Langston, a wiry man with spectacles and a nervous smile, greeted them, his hands fidgeting as he led them to a cluttered office. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, a pleasure, Langston said, pushing papers aside. I was sorry to hear of Lord Ashford's death. A terrible loss. How can I help? Poirot's eyes gleamed, his voice smooth. Monsieur Langston, you offered to buy The Lady in Crimson from Lord Ashford. Tell me, why is this painting so valuable to you? Langston adjusted his spectacles, his smile faltering. It's a masterpiece, Monsieur Poirot. Edmund Varnley's work from 1642 is rare. The painting's history, its curse, makes it a collector's dream. I offered a fair price, but Lord Ashford refused. Hastings leaned forward. A fair price. You offered a fortune. What's so special about it, besides the curse nonsense? Langston hesitated, glancing at the door. The curse, it's part of its allure. Collectors love a story. The painting's last owner, a Bristol merchant named Harrow, went bankrupt and vanished after owning it. Before him, a Scottish lord died in a fire. It's been tied to misfortune for centuries. Poirot's moustache twitched. Misfortune or murder? Monsieur Harrow, you say he vanished. When? Langston swallowed, his voice low. 2 years ago. He was in debt, like Lord Ashford, and sold the painting at auction. I bid, but lost to Ashford. Another bidder, Madame Dubois, was furious. She's a French collector, obsessed with Varney's work. Poirot nodded, his mind turning. Madame Dubois, she wrote to Lord Ashford, oui. What do you know of her? Langston's eyes darted. Away. She's wealthy, ruthless. She collects rare art, especially pieces with dark histories. She came to me after the auction, asking about the painting, its origins. She said it held a secret, something hidden in the frame. Hastings gasped. The frame, Poirot. That's where we found the locket. Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. The locket, Monsieur Langston. Have you heard of such a thing? Langston's face paled. A locket, no, but there are rumors. Varnley, the artist, was said to hide keepsakes in his frames, letters, jewels, tokens of his love for Lady Eleanor. If you found one, it could be worth a fortune. Poirot pulled the locket from his pocket, holding it up but not opening it. This, perhaps, found in the frame with a portrait inside. Langston's eyes widened, his hands trembling. That's extraordinary. May I see it? Poirot tucked it away, his voice firm. Nan, monsieur, it is evidence in a murder. Tell me, did Madame Dubois ever visit Ashford Manor? Langston nodded, his voice barely a whisper. She told me she went there a week before Lord Ashford's death. She offered him double my price, but he refused. She was angry. Poirot's eyes narrowed, angry enough to kill. Langston flinched. I don't know, Monsieur Poirot. She's passionate, but murder, I can't say. Poirot stood, his small frame commanding. Merci, Monsieur Langston. You have been most helpful. We shall return to the manor, but Poirot may call on you again. Back on the train to Reading, Hastings was restless, his voice low. Poirot, this Madame Dubois sounds like trouble. She wanted that painting badly, and now we know she was at the manor. Think she's the killer. Poirot gazed out the window, his face calm. Possible mon ami, but the locked room, the painted dagger, these are not the work of an outsider. Alone. Someone inside helped, or acted alone. The locket, it is the key, but to what lock? At Ashford Manor, the air was heavier, the family fractured by the will's revelation. Poirot and Hastings found them in the drawing-room, where Inspector Davies was taking statements. Lady Beatrice sat stiffly, her eyes cold, her hands folded. Charles paced, his face flushed, a fresh brandy in hand. Evelyn sat by the window, her blonde hair catching the light, her fingers twisting a scarf. Clara huddled in a corner, her eyes red, clutching her handkerchief. Grayson stood by the door, his face unreadable. Poirot held up the locket, his voice clear. Madame et messieurs, this locket was found in the painting's frame. It holds a portrait, perhaps of Lady Eleanor. Lord Ashford knew of it, and it may have led to his death. Who among you saw him with it? Lady Beatrice's lips tightened. Reginald never mentioned a locket. He was obsessed with the painting, but kept his thoughts private. Charles snorted. Another secret. Typical. He left the painting to Clara, and now there's a locket worth a fortune. She's got it all, hasn't she? Clara's voice broke, tears streaming. I didn't... No. I don't want it, it's cursed, I tell you. Evelyn's voice was sharp. Charles, stop it. You're scaring her. Grayson cleared his throat. His lordship spent hours in the gallery, sir. I saw him examining the frame, but never a locket. Poirot's gaze lingered on each face, searching for a lie. The locket, it is a clue to the past and to the murder. Madame Dubois, the collector, knew of a secret in the frame. She visited Lord Ashford, Lady Beatrice nodded. She came a week ago, offering to buy the painting. Reginald sent her away. Clara whispered, I saw her in the village. Too, asking about the manor. She scared me. Poirot's eyes brightened. Most interesting. Madame Dubois, she circles this mystery like a hawk. But the killer, they are closer within these walls. As evening fell, a scream echoed from upstairs. Poirot and Hastings rushed to Clara's room, finding her trembling, pointing at the floor. A black cat sat there, its yellow eyes glinting, a feather beside it. It was here, Clara cried. and the window it opened on its own. Poirot examined the room, finding the window slightly ajar, its latch loose. No footprints, no signs of entry, but the cat vanished into the hall. He picked up the feather, his face grim. The cat, the feathers, they are tools, used to frighten. But Poirot is not fooled. Chapter 9. A Night of Revelations. The evening shadows stretched long across Ashford Manor, wrapping the grand house in a cloak of unease. Hercule Poirot stood in the gallery, his small frame dwarfed by the towering presence of the lady in crimson. The painting's subject, a woman in a vivid red gown. Her dark eyes sharp and knowing seemed to pulse with secrets, her gaze a silent challenge to the little Belgian detective. Lord Reginald Ashford's murder, stabbed in this locked room, with a dagger smeared in crimson paint, had turned the manor into a nest of fear and deceit. The hidden will, leaving the painting to Clara. The locket, with Lady Eleanor's portrait found in the frame. The black cat, the feathers, and the whispers all pointed to a human hand weaving a tale of terror to hide a motive. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, piecing together the clues. From the scratched frame to Mr. Langston's revelations about the painting's dark history and Madame Dubois's obsession. Captain Hastings, pacing nearby, adjusted his tie, his face weary but eager. Poirot, old chap, this case is a beast. A locket, a will, that blasted cat now. What? You think Madame Dubois is behind it all? Poirot's moustache twitched, his voice calm but firm. Madame Dubois, she is a shadow in this mystery, mon ami, but the heart of it lies here, in this house, the painting. It hides more than a locket. Tonight we dine with the family, and Poirot shall stir the pot to see what secrets bubble up. Hastings frowned, glancing at the painting. Stir the pot? You mean make them squirm? Risky? Poirot with a killer loose. Poirot smiled faintly. Risk, Hastings, is the spice of truth. Come, we must prepare for dinner. The dining room was grand, its long oak table gleaming under candlelight, but the air was thick with tension, like a storm waiting to break. Lady Beatrice Ashford sat at one end, her posture stiff, her eyes cold as she sipped her wine. Charles Ashford slouched across from her, his face flushed, a brandy glass in hand, his anger barely contained since learning the painting was left to Clara. Evelyn, his wife, sat beside him, her blonde hair pinned tightly, her hands fidgeting with her napkin. Clara, the niece, sat quietly, her face pale, her eyes red from crying, her fear of the painting's curse growing with each passing day. Mr. Grayson, the butler, moved silently, serving soup with the precision of a clock, his face a mask of calm. Poirot and Hastings took their seats. Poirot sipping his tisana, warm herbal tea he favoured while observing the family. The will had fractured their unity, and the locket's discovery had deepened their unease. He broke the silence, his voice smooth but deliberate. Madame et Messieurs, the investigation progresses. The locket, found in the painting's frame, links to Lady Eleanor, the woman in The Lady in Crimson. Lord Ashford sought her secret, and it cost him his life. Tonight, Poirot asks, "Do you know of this locket?" Lady Beatrice's lips tightened, her voice sharp. "Nothing, Monsieur Poirot. Reginald kept his research private. He was obsessed with that painting, but never mentioned a locket." Charles snorted, his glass clinking. Another secret. Father was full of them. Left the painting to Clara, hid a locket. What else was he hiding? Clara's voice trembled, tears in her eyes. "I didn't know about the locket, Charles. I don't want the painting, it's cursed, I tell you. Evelyn's voice was soft, but strained. Charles, please, you're upsetting her. Poirot's eyes flickered between them, noting Charles's anger, Clara's fear, Evelyn's tension. Madame Evelyn, you seem uneasy. Is there something you wish to share? Evelyn hesitated, her fingers twisting her napkin. It's just the murder, the painting, it's all so horrible. I can't sleep thinking of it. Poirot nodded, his gaze piercing. And you, Monsieur Charles, you speak of debts, of the painting's value. Did you argue with your father about selling it? Charles's face darkened. Yes, I did. He was stubborn, said it was too important to sell. I told him we needed the money, but he wouldn't listen. Lady Beatrice's voice was icy. Charles, enough. Your father did what he thought best. Poirot leaned forward, his voice gentle but probing. And Madame Dubois, the collector who wanted the painting, did she contact any of you besides Lord Ashford? Clara whispered. She asked me about the manor in the village. I told you, she scared me. Grayson, serving bread, cleared his throat. She came to the manor, sir, a week before the murder. I heard her argue with his lordship. She offered a fortune, but he sent her away. Poirot's eyes brightened. Most interesting. Madame Dubois, she circles this mystery, but the killer, they are closer. Let us speak of the night of the murder. Monsieur Charles, you were reading, oui. What book? Charles blinked, caught off guard. A novel, I think. Can't recall the title. Evelyn's voice was quick. It was The Hound of the Baskervilles. I saw it on his table. Poirot's moustache twitched, noting her swift answer. And you, Madame Evelyn? You were asleep, but perhaps you heard something, a whisper, a step. Evelyn shook her head, her eyes down. Nothing, Monsieur Poirot. Just the scream that woke us. Poirot turned to Clara, his tone gentle. Mademoiselle Clara, you heard whispers before the scream. Where, precisely? Clara hugged herself, her voice barely audible. Outside my room, then in the hall, near the gallery. It was a woman's voice, soft, saying my name. Lady Beatrice scoffed. Clara, you're imagining things. This cursed nonsense has gone to your head. Poirot raised a hand, silencing her. Imagination or intention? Someone uses these whispers, this cat, to frighten. But Poirot sees through the game. As dinner continued, the conversation grew strained, each word heavy with unspoken accusations. Poirot watched, his eyes missing nothing: Charles's clenched fists, Evelyn's nervous glances, Clara's trembling hands, Lady Beatrice's tight control. Grayson moved like a shadow, his calm masking a keen awareness. Poirot decided to push further, to shake the truth loose. Madame et messieurs, he said, standing, his voice commanding, let us visit the gallery. The painting, it holds the heart of this mystery. Perhaps, together, we shall see what it hides. The family hesitated, but followed their footsteps, echoing through the hall. The gallery was dim, lit only by a few candles, casting long shadows. Across the paintings, the lady in crimson loomed at the far end, its crimson gown glowing, its eyes seeming to follow them. Clara shivered, staying close to Hastings, who offered a reassuring smile. Poirot stood before the painting, his small frame straight, his voice clear. This painting, it is no curse, but a mirror, reflecting the desires of those who see it. Lord Ashford sought its secret and died for it. Who among you knows what he found? Before anyone could answer, a piercing scream cut through the air. Coming from the painting itself, everyone froze, eyes wide. Poirot spun around, his heart steady, and saw the unthinkable. The lady in crimson had been slashed, a long gash tearing through the canvas, from the lady's face to her crimson gown. Paint dripped like blood, pooling on the floor. Clara collapsed, sobbing, into Hastings's arms. The curse, it's alive. Lady Beatrice gasped, her hand on her heart. My God, who did this? Charles's voice was a growl. Who? Someone in this room, that's who. Evelyn's face was pale, her voice shaking. It was fine when we came in. How could this happen? Grayson, stepping forward, pointed to the floor. Look, sir, a knife. A small knife, its blade smeared with paint, lay near the painting, its handle glinting in the candlelight. Poirot knelt, examining it without touching. Fresh paint, like the dagger that killed Lord Ashford. This is no accident, but a message. Hastings, holding Clara, whispered Poirot, this is madness. Who could have done it, right under our nose as Poirot stood, his eyes scanning the family. Someone swift, someone bold. The knife, it was placed here during our distraction. But who? Inspector Davies, alerted by the scream, burst in, his face grim. What's happened now? The painting ruined. Poirot's voice was calm. Not ruined, Inspector, but marked. This slash, it is a crying fear or a warning. We must search the gallery, the house. The culprit is near. The family was ushered back to the drawing room, shaken and silent. Poirot and Davies examined the gallery, finding no footprints. No signs of entry, but a faint smudge of paint on the frame, near the hidden compartment. The knife matched those in the Manor's kitchen, suggesting an inside job. Poirot's mind raced. The slash, like the murder, was staged to fuel the curse narrative. But why? Back in the drawing room, Poirot faced the family, his voice steady. The painting has been attacked, but not by a ghost. Someone here knows why. Speak, or Poirot shall find you out. Lady Beatrice's voice was cold. This is outrageous. We were all here, together. Who could have done it? Charles's eyes flashed. Clara, you're always going on about the curse. Did you slash it to prove your point? Clara sobbed, shaking her head. No, I'd never touch it. Evelyn's voice broke, her face pale. I need to say something. Monsieur Poirot, I saw Mr. Langston, the art dealer, before, not here, but in London, a month ago. I met him, secretly. Hastings gasped. Good heavens, Evelyn. Why? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. I didn't mean any harm. Charles was so angry about the debts, and Langston offered to help, to buy the painting. I thought, if I could convince Reginald, we'd be free. Charles's face darkened, his voice a growl. You went behind my back. To Langston. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Madame Evelyn, you met Langston. Did you tell him of the locket, the frame's secret? Evelyn shook her head. No, I didn't know about the locket. I only told him the painting was causing trouble, that we wanted to sell. Poirot nodded, his mind turning. A secret meeting, a slashed painting, a locket from the past. The threads, they tighten. Madame Dubois, too, knew of the frame's secret. Someone here works with an outsider, or acts alone, for reasons yet hidden. Chapter 10. The clue in the locket. The morning light filtered through Ashford Manor's tall windows. casting a pale glow over the sombre halls, but no warmth could lift the shadow of death that clung to the house. Hercule Poirot stood in the study, his small hands carefully handling the gold locket found in the frame of the lady in crimson. Its rose engraving gleamed, and the miniature portrait inside a woman with dark hair and sharp eyes stared back, a silent echo of the paintings. Tragic subject, Lady Eleanor. Lord Ashford's murder, stabbed in the locked gallery with a dagger smeared in crimson paint, had unravelled a web of secrets, the hidden will leaving the painting to Clara, the scratched frame, the black cat, the feathers, the whispers, and now the slashed canvas, its gash a raw wound across the lady's face. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, piecing together the clues, certain that the locket held a key to the motive love, betrayal, or greed from centuries past, reborn in the present dot. Captain Hastings, sipping coffee at the desk, looked up, his face weary but curious. "Poirot, old chap, that locket's got you hooked. Think it's the reason Lord Ashford was killed, or is it just another piece of this cursed puzzle?" Poirot's moustache twitched, his voice calm but firm. "The locket, mon ami, is no mere trinket. It is a bridge between the past and the murder. Lady Eleanor, her story, it lives in this portrait, and someone killed to claim or hide it. Today, we learn who she was and why she matters now." Hastings frowned, setting his cup down. "You mean the painting's history? That love story with the artist Vanley? Sounds like a sad tale, but how's it tied to a modern murder?" Poirot tucked the locket into his pocket, his eyes bright. "A sad tale, we but one with power. Love and betrayal, they leave echoes. Come, we search the library for answers, and then we speak with the family. Their secrets, they are cracking." The library was a grand room, its shelves lined with leather-bound books, the air thick with the scent of dust and old paper. A tall window let in slants of light, illuminating a portrait of a stern Ashford ancestor above the fireplace. Poirot moved with purpose, his small hands flipping through volumes on art and history, searching for mentions of Edmund Varney and Lady Eleanor. Hastings, less patient, poked at a globe, muttering about the endless reading. "Poirot, look here," Hastings called, pulling a thin book from a shelf. "It's about 17th century painters. Varnley's in it." Poirot took the book, his eyes scanning the faded pages. The passage described Edmund Varnley as a reclusive genius, his life consumed by his love for Lady Eleanor, a noble woman promised to another man. Betrayed by her family, she died in 1642, some said, by poison. Others by her own hand shortly after Varnley painted the lady in crimson in her memory. Rumours swirled that the painting hid a secret, a token of their love, sealed in its frame. Poirot paused, his finger on a line. Varnley's final work, a locket for Eleanor, was said to hold her likeness, a treasure lost to time. "The locket," Poirot murmured, pulling it from his pocket. "This is it, Hastings. Lady Eleanor's portrait, hidden for centuries. But why kill for it now?" Hastings scratched his head. "Maybe it's worth a fortune. Or maybe it's proof of something, some old scandal." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Proof, or a symbol. The locket, it ties to the painting's curse, a story someone uses to hide a modern crime. We must learn more. They returned to the drawing room, where the family was gathered, their faces heavy with grief and suspicion. Lady Beatrice sat stiffly, her hands clasped, her eyes cold. Charles paced by the fireplace, his brandy glass empty, his anger simmering since learning Clara inherited the painting. Evelyn sat near him, her blonde hair loose, her fingers twisting a scarf. Clara huddled in an armchair, her face pale, her eyes red from crying over the slashed painting and her fear of the curse. Mr. Grayson stood by the door, his calm mask hiding a keen awareness. Inspector Davies, his notebook open, was questioning the maids, who hovered nervously in the hall. Poirot held up the locket, its gold catching the firelight. Madame et Messieurs, this locket, found in the painting's frame, holds a portrait of Lady Eleanor. The woman and the lady in crimson. Her story of love betrayed, a death in 1642 lives in this. Lord Ashford knew, and it may have led to his murder. Who among you knew of this locket? Lady Beatrice's voice was sharp. Reginald never spoke of it. He was obsessed with the painting, but kept his findings to himself. Charles snorted, his face flushed. Another secret. Father was full of them. First the will, now a locket left to Clara, I bet, like everything else. Clara's voice broke, tears streaming. I didn't know. I don't want it, Charles. It's part of the curse. Evelyn's voice was soft but tense. Charles, stop it. You're scaring her. Poirot's eyes flickered between them, noting their raw emotions. Madame Evelyn, you met Mr. Langston, the art dealer, in secret. Did he speak of this locket, or the painting's secret? Evelyn's hands froze, her eyes wide. No, Monsieur Poirot. He only talked about buying the painting to help with the debts. I didn't know about the locket. Poirot turned to Clara, his tone gentle. Mademoiselle Clara, you spent time with Lord Ashford, talking of art. Did he ever mention Lady Eleanor's story? Clara shook her head, her voice trembling. He said the painting was special, that it held a mystery, but he never showed me the locket. Grayson cleared his throat, his voice steady. His lordship was reading old books, sir, about Varnley. I saw him in the library, taking notes. Poirot's gaze lingered on the butler, his calm too perfect. Mercy, Monsieur Grayson, you see much, Nan. Perhaps you saw more than you say. Grayson's face remained still, but his eyes flickered. I only served his lordship, sir. Poirot paced, his hands clasped behind his back. The locket. It is a clue to the past, but also to the present. Lady Eleanor's death. It mirrors Lord Ashford's betrayal, perhaps, or a greed that spans centuries. We must look deeper. As the family dispersed, Poirot and Hastings returned to the library, digging through more records. They found a letter, tucked in a book, from Lord Ashford to his solicitor. Dated days before his death. The painting's secret is real. The locket proves it. I must protect Clara. The words sent a chill through Poirot Lord Ashford's. Concern for Clara suggested he knew danger was near. Hastings frowned, holding the letter. Protect Clara. From what? The curse, or someone in the house? Poirot's eyes narrowed. Someone, mon ami? The curse is a mask, worn by a killer. The locket, it is a prize, or a threat. We must learn its value. They headed to the gallery, where the lady in crimson stood, its slashed canvas a stark reminder of the killer's boldness. The gash ran through the lady's face, her crimson gown torn, as if the attacker meant to destroy her spirit. Poirot examined the cut, finding it precise, made with a sharp blade, not in anger, but with purpose. He checked the frame again, the hidden compartment still empty except for a faint trace of dust, suggesting the locket had been there for years. Curious, Poirot murmured. The slash, it hides something or reveals it. The killer wants us to look at the painting, but not too closely. Hastings shivered, glancing at the lady's eyes. It's creepy, Poirot. Even slashed, she's watching us. Poirot chuckled. Softly, watching, Nan, pointing, to the truth, hidden in her past. A soft meow broke the silence. The black cat appeared in the doorway, its yellow eyes glinting, its tail flicking slowly. Hastings groaned. That blasted cat again. It's everywhere. Poirot approached, his movements calm, but the cat darted away, leaving another black feather on the floor. He picked it up, his face grim. The cat, the feathers, they are props. Hastings, staged to keep the curse alive. But who is the director? They followed the cat's path, finding a faint paw print near the garden door, which was ajar. Outside, the roses drooped in the cold, and a trail of prints led to a hedge, then vanished. Poirot knelt, examining the ground. Fresh prints, mon ami. The cat, it is lured here, perhaps with food, to play its part. Back inside, Poirot gathered the family in the drawing room, his voice commanding. Madame et Messieurs, the locket. Proves the painting's history a love lost, a secret hidden. Lord Ashford knew, and died for it. Someone in this house, or beyond, seeks that secret. Speak, or Poirot shall find you. Lady Beatrice's voice was cold. This is absurd. We're grieving, and you accuse us. Charles's eyes flashed. Clara's got the painting, the locket, everything. Maybe she's behind it, playing the scared little girl. Clara sobbed, shaking her head. No, I'd never hurt Uncle Reginald. Evelyn's voice broke, her face pale. Charles, stop it. I need to confess something else. I didn't just meet Langston. I've been writing to him about the painting, the debts. I thought I was helping. Hastings gasped. Good heavens, Evelyn. You kept that quiet. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Madame Evelyn, you wrote to Langston. Did you tell him of the locket or Madame Dubois's visit? Evelyn shook her head, tears falling. No, I only said the painting was causing trouble. I didn't know about the locket until now. Poirot nodded, his mind turning. A confession, it is a start. But the truth, it lies deeper. The painting, the locket, they point to a motive, and Poirot is close. Chapter 11. The vanishing of Claritha. Fog rolled back over Ashford Manor, cloaking the grand house in a grey veil that matched the mood within its walls. Hercule Poirot stood in the gallery, his small hands clasped behind his back, his green eyes fixed on the slashed canvas of the Lady in Crimson. The paintings subject a woman in a vivid red gown. Her face, now marred by a deep gash, seemed to accuse him, her dark eyes demanding answers. Lord Reginald Ashford's murder, stabbed in this locked room with a dagger smeared in crimson paint, had woven a tapestry of secrets. The hidden will leaving the painting to Clara, the locket with Lady Eleanor's portrait found in the frame, the black cat, the feathers, the whispers, and the painting's brutal slashing. Evelyn's confession of her secret meetings with Mr. Langston had cracked the family's fragile trust. And now Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, sensing the mystery was nearing a breaking point. Captain Hastings, rubbing his hands against the morning chill, joined him, his face drawn from sleepless nights. Poirot, old chap, this place gets gloomier by the day. That slashed painting, it's like the curse is laughing at us. Any new ideas? Poirot's moustache twitched, his voice calm but firm. The curse, mon ami, is a tale spun by a killer to hide their work. The locket, the slashing, they point to a motive, not magic. Today we search for more, in the house and in the hearts of those within it. Hastings frowned, glancing at the painting's torn face. What about Clara? She's terrified, poor girl. With that will leaving her the painting. Think she's in danger. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Clara, she is at the heart of this. Her fear, it is real law, perhaps a mask. We must speak with her, to learn what she hides. They headed to the drawing room, where the family was meant to gather for breakfast, but the air was thick with unease. Lady Beatrice Ashford sat alone, her posture stiff, her hands folded tightly, her eyes cold but shadowed by worry. Charles Ashford stood by the window, his broad frame tense, a brandy glass already in hand despite the early hour. Evelyn, his wife, sat nearby, her blonde hair loose, her fingers twisting a handkerchief, her face pale after her confession. Mr. Grayson, the butler, poured coffee, his movements precise, his face a mask of calm. Clara's chair was empty, a silent alarm in the tense room. "Where is Mademoiselle Clara?" Poirot asked, his voice sharp, cutting through the silence. Lady Beatrice's lips tightened. "She didn't come down. She's been upset, locking herself in her room since the painting was slashed." Charles snorted, his voice rough, probably scared of her own shadow. "That cursed nonsense has her jumping at every creak." Evelyn's voice was soft but strained. "Charles, don't be cruel. She's frightened, and with good reason." Poirot's eyes flickered between them, noting their frayed nerves. "Monsieur Grayson, please check on Mademoiselle Clara. Her absence, it is troubling." Grayson nodded, his shoes clicking as he left. Moments later, he returned, his face pale, his calm cracking. "Sir, Miss Clara's room is empty. Her bed's unmade, her shawl's gone. She's not there." Lady Beatrice gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Empty. Where could she be? Charles's glass clinked against the window. Run off, probably, couldn't handle the pressure. Evelyn stood, her voice shaking. "Charles, stop it. Clara wouldn't just leave, she's terrified." Poirot raised a hand, his voice commanding. "Enough, all of you. A young woman is missing in a house where murder has struck. We search, now. Inspector Davies must be informed." Hastings, ever practical, headed for the door. "I'll fetch Davies." "Poirot, he's in the study with his men." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Clara's disappearance, so soon after the painting's slashing, was no coincidence. Was she a victim, fleeing danger, or part of the plot? He led the family to Clara's room, a small but cozy space with a four-poster bed, a writing desk, and a window overlooking the garden. The bed was mussed, as if she'd slept restlessly. Her shawl was gone, but her shoes remained by the door, suggesting she left in a hurry. A candle on the desk had burned low, wax pooling, as if used late at night. Poirot knelt, examining the floor. A faint smudge of dirt near the window caught his eye, leading to a loose latch. "The window, it was opened," he murmured. "Perhaps Clara left this way or was taken." Lady Beatrice's voice broke. "Taken, my niece, kidnapped. Who would do such a thing?" Charles's face darkened. "That Madame Dubois woman, she's been sniffing around, hasn't she? Wanted the painting bad enough to kill." Evelyn's eyes widened. Or someone here. The whispers, the cat someone's been scaring her. Poirot's moustache twitched. "All is possible, but we need facts. Monsieur Grayson, when did you last see Mademoiselle Clara?" Grayson stood straight, his voice steady. "Last night, sir, after dinner. She went to her room, said she wanted to be alone." Poirot nodded, scanning the room. On the desk, a scrap of paper lay under a book, its edge torn. He lifted it, revealing a note in Clara's handwriting. I know the truth. The locket is the key. I must tell Poirot. His heart quickened. This was no ordinary disappearance. Hastings, Poirot said, holding up the note, this changes everything. Clara knew something dangerous. We must find her before it is too late. Inspector Davies arrived, his bushy moustache twitching, his face grim. Missing, you say? In my experience, people don't vanish without reason. We'll search the grounds, the village. Any clues, Monsieur Poirot? Poirot handed him the note, his voice calm. This, Inspector. Clara knew a truth about the locket, and now she is gone. Search, but carefully. The killer, they are close. The search began, with constables scouring the gardens, stables, and nearby woods, while Poirot and Hastings stayed in the manor, questioning the staff. The maids, Molly and Jane, were tearful, claiming Clara was kind but frightened, often talking of the painting's curse. They'd heard whispers again last night near Clara's room, but saw no one. The cook reported seeing a figure in a cloak near the garden gate at dusk, possibly Madame Dubois, but couldn't be sure. Poirot returned to the gallery, where the lady in crimson stood, its slashed face a stark reminder of the killer's rage. He examined the frame again, the hidden compartment empty but for a faint scratch inside, suggesting something else had been stored there. The locket, still in his pocket, felt heavy, its portrait of Lady Eleanor a silent plea for answers. Hastings, Poirot said, we must learn more of the locket. Its history, it ties to Lady Eleanor's death, and perhaps to Clara's fate. They headed to the library, digging through Lord Ashford's books. Among them was a journal, its pages filled with his notes on the painting. The locket holds Eleanor's secret, a proof of betrayal. Her family hid it, fearing scandal. If found, it could ruin. Poirot paused, his mind turning to the word ruin. Was the locket evidence of a crime, a scandal, or something more personal? Hastings frowned, reading over his shoulder. Ruin, what? Some old love affair gone wrong. How's that worth killing for? Poirot's eyes brightened. Not love, but legacy, mon ami, a secret that threatens a name, a fortune. The locket, it is a key to the past, and someone today fears its lock. Back in the drawing room, the family was in chaos. Lady Beatrice paced, her voice sharp. Clara, gone. This is unbearable. She's my niece, my responsibility. Charles's glass trembled, his voice rough. She's probably hiding, scared of that painting. Or maybe she's in on it new. About the locket, didn't she? Evelyn's voice snapped, her face pale. Charles, enough. Clara's not a schemer. She's terrified. What if the killer took her? Grayson, serving tea, spoke quietly. Miss Clara was upset. Last night, sir, she asked me if the manor was safe. Poirot's gaze lingered on the butler, his calm to steady. Safe, Monsieur Grayson. And what did you tell her? Grayson met his eyes. I said we were all watching, sir. But she seemed troubled. Poirot held up Clara's note, his voice commanding. This note, found in Clara's room, says, she knew the truth about the locket. She meant to tell Poirot, but now she is gone. Who among you spoke to her last night? Lady Beatrice's hands clenched. I did, after dinner. She was crying, talking nonsense about the curse. I told her to rest. Charles shrugged. I didn't see her. Too busy arguing with Evelyn about her little secret with Langston. Evelyn's eyes flashed, tears welling. I saw her in the hall, going to her room. She looked scared, but I didn't stop her. I wish I had. Poirot's eyes narrowed, reading their faces, grief, guilt, anger. Someone was lying, or perhaps they all were, hiding pieces of the truth. He dismissed them, keeping the note, and returned to the study with Hastings, where he found another clue. A letter from Lord Ashford to Clara, hidden in a drawer, dated the day before his death. Dear Clara, the locket is dangerous. Keep it secret for your safety. Hastings gasped. Good heavens, Poirot, Lord Ashford warned her. Think she found the locket before you? Poirot nodded, his face grim. Possible, mon ami. Clara knew, and now she is gone. We must find her, before the killer does. As night fell, the search continued, but no trace of Clara was found. Poirot examined her room again, finding a hairpin near the window, bent as if used to pry the latch. Was she escaping or lured outside? The black cat appeared in the hall, its yellow eyes glinting, another feather at its feet. Poirot picked it up, his voice low. You, little one, are a pawn, but who moves you? The chapter continues with Poirot questioning the staff, learning that Clara was seen near the gallery before her disappearance, clutching a book about Varnley. Davies reports no sign of Clara in the village, but a witness saw a cloaked figure near the manor's gate, possibly Madame Dubois. Tensions rise as Charles accuses Evelyn of hiding more secrets, while Lady Beatrice blames the painting's curse, and Grayson's calm raises Poirot's suspicions. Poirot sets a trap, leaving a fake note in the gallery about the locket, hoping to draw the killer, but finds only silence. The chapter ends with Poirot standing before the lady in crimson, whispering, Your secret, madame, has taken Clara, but Poirot shall bring her back, and the truth with her. Chapter 12. The attic's secret. The fog clung to Ashford Manor like a shroud, its grey tendrils seeping through the cracks of the old stone walls, mirroring the dread that gripped the household. Hercule Poirot stood in the gallery, his small hands clasped behind his back, his green eyes fixed on the slashed canvas of the lady in crimson. The painting's subject, a woman in a vivid red gown, her face torn by a deliberate gash, seemed to whisper accusations, her dark eyes demanding justice. Lord Reginald Ashford's murder, stabbed in this locked room with a dagger smeared in crimson paint, had unravelled a web of secrets, the hidden will leaving the painting to Clara, the locket with Lady Eleanor's portrait found in the frame, the black cat, the feathers, the whispers, the slashed canvas, and now Clara's mysterious disappearance. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, piecing together the clues, certain that Clara's absence was no accident, but a thread tied to the painting's tragic history. Captain Hastings, his face pale from worry, paced nearby, his tie loosened. After a sleepless night, Poirot, old chap, Clara's gone, and this place feels like a ghost story. That note she left. I know the truth. Think she's run off, or worse, been taken. Poirot's moustache twitched, his voice calm but firm. Clara, mon amie, is either a victim or a player in this game. Her note, it speaks of the lockets. Truth, a secret worth killing for. Today we search the manor, top to bottom. She is here, I feel it, and with her the key to this mystery. Hastings frowned, glancing at the painting's torn face. The manor's huge. Poirot, where do we start? And what about that Madame Dubois? She's been lurking, hasn't she? Poirot nodded, his eyes bright. Madame Dubois, she is a shadow, but the heart of this crime lies within these walls. Come, we begin with the attic. Old houses, they hide their secrets in forgotten places. They informed Inspector Davies, who was coordinating the search of the grounds, and gathered the family in the drawing room to announce their plan. Lady Beatrice Ashford sat stiffly, her hands clenched, her eyes red but defiant, as if holding back a storm of grief. Charles Ashford stood by the fireplace, his broad frame tense, a brandy glass in hand, his anger simmering since learning Clara inherited the painting. Evelyn, his wife, sat nearby, her blonde hair loose, her fingers twisting a scarf, her face pale after confessing her secret meetings with Mr. Langston. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood by the door, his calm mask barely hiding a flicker of unease. Clara's empty chair loomed like a silent accusation. Poirot's voice cut through the tension, clear and commanding. Madame et Messieurs, Mademoiselle Clara is missing, and her note suggests she knew a dangerous truth about the locket. We shall search the manor, starting with the attic. Who among you has been there recently? Lady Beatrice's voice was sharp. The attic, it's full of dust and old junk. Clara wouldn't go there, she's too frightened. Charles snorted, his glass clinking. She's probably hiding, playing the victim. Always going on about that curse. Evelyn's voice trembled, her eyes wide. Charles, stop it. Clara's in danger, I know it. She was so scared after the painting was slashed. Grayson cleared his throat, his voice steady. The attic, sir, is rarely used. I checked it last month for leaks, but saw nothing unusual. Poirot's gaze lingered on the butler, his calm to perfect. Mercy, Monsieur Grayson. We shall see for ourselves. You will all remain here, under Inspector Davies's watch. Hastings followed Poirot up the grand staircase, their footsteps echoing in the silent hall. The attic door, tucked at the end of a narrow corridor, was heavy and creaked as they pushed it open. The air was musty, thick with dust, and the dim light revealed a clutter of crates, trunks, and forgotten furniture, all draped in cobwebs. A single window let in a sliver of grey light, casting eerie shadows across the room. Blimey, Poirot, Hastings whispered. This place is spooky. Clara, up here, seems unlikely. Poirot's eyes scanned the room, his small frame moving, with purpose. Unlikely, we, but desperate people, seek desperate places. Look, Hastings, fresh footprints in the dust. He pointed to a trail of small prints, leading to a corner where a pile of trunks stood against the wall. Poirot knelt, examining the floor, finding a faint smudge of dirt, like the one in Clara's room. He moved a trunk, revealing a small space. Behind it, where a blanket lay crumpled, along with a half-eaten apple and a candle stub, Hastings. Poirot called softly. Clara was here, hiding. She is no victim, but a fugitive, perhaps. Before Hastings could reply, a soft rustle came from the shadows. Poirot spun, his hand raised, and saw a figure huddled behind another trunk. Mademoiselle. Clara, he said, his voice gentle but firm. Come out, s'il vous plaît. Poirot is here to help. Clara emerged, her face pale, her hair tangled, her shawl clutched tightly. Monsieur Poirot, I was scared. I know too much, and someone wants me dead. Hastings rushed to her, helping her to a crate to sit. Good heavens, Clara, why didn't you tell us? What's this truth you wrote about? Clara's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. The locket, I found it before you did. Uncle Reginald showed me the frame's compartment, said it held a secret that could ruin us. He told me to keep quiet, but after he died, I got scared and hid. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his voice soft. Ruin, mademoiselle. What secret did Lord Ashford share? Clara reached into her pocket, pulling out a folded letter, its edges yellowed with age. I found this, hidden with the locket. It's from Lady Eleanor to Edmund Varnley, dated 1642. Poirot took the letter, his heart quickening. The handwriting was delicate, faded but clear. My dearest Edmund, my family betrays me, forcing me to wed another. This locket holds my heart, and a truth they must never know. If I die, it is their doing. Keep it safe for our love. Hastings gasped. Good grief, Poirot. A murder, back then. And the locket proves it. Poirot's moustache twitched. Not just a murder, mon ami, but a scandal. Lady Eleanor's family, they were powerful perhaps, ancestors of the Ashfords. This letter, it could taint their name, even now. Lord Ashford knew, and someone else does, too. Clara sobbed, her voice breaking. Uncle Reginald said the letter could ruin the family's reputation, make the painting worthless. I was going to tell you, but then the painting was slashed, and I thought I'd be next. Poirot patted her hand, his voice gentle. You are safe now, mademoiselle. But you must tell all. Did anyone see you with this letter? Clara shook her head. I don't think so. I hid it in my room, then brought it here when I ran. But someone's been following my heard footsteps, whispers. Poirot nodded, tucking the letter into his pocket with the locket. We returned to the family. This letter, it changes everything. The killer, they fear its truth. They escorted Clara downstairs, where Inspector Davies and the family waited in the drawing room. Lady Beatrice gasped, rushing to embrace her niece. Clara, thank God you're safe. Charles's face darkened, his glass trembling, hiding. In the attic, what game are you playing, Clara? Evelyn's voice was sharp. Charles, leave her alone. She's been through enough. Poirot held up the letter, his voice commanding. Madame et Messieurs, Clara is found, and with her a letter from Lady Eleanor, hidden with the locket. It speaks of betrayal, of murder in 1642. Lord Ashford knew, and his death is tied to this secret. Who among you knew of this letter? Lady Beatrice's eyes widened, her voice cold. Reginald never mentioned a letter. This is nonsense, ancient history. Charles snorted. History. Sounds like another excuse for Clara to get everything. First the painting, now this. Clara's voice broke, tears streaming. I didn't want any of it. I was scared. Grayson, serving tea, spoke quietly. His lordship was researching. The painting, sir. I saw him with old papers, but not that one. Poirot's gaze lingered on the butler, his calm to steady. Mercy, Monsieur Grayson. You see much, Nan. Perhaps you saw Clara hiding. Grayson shook his head, his eyes steady. No, sir. I only noticed her absence this morning. Poirot paced, his hands clasped behind his back. This letter, it is a motive. A scandal, hidden for centuries, threatens the Ashford name, or the painting's value. The killer, they act to protect or to destroy. As the family argued, a soft meow echoed from the hall. Hastings spun around, that blasted cat again. Poirot followed the sound, finding the black cat in the gallery, sitting beneath the slashed painting, a feather at its feet. He picked it up, his face grim. The cat, the feathers, they are tools, used to keep the curse alive. But Poirot sees the hand behind them. He examined the painting again, finding a tiny scrap of fabric caught in the frame, near the gasher dark. Thread, like that of a cloak. "Most interesting," he murmured. "The slasher, they were careless. This thread, it points to someone." Chapter 13. The truth revealed. The fog around Ashford Manor had thickened, wrapping the grand house in a grey cocoon, as if the very air held its breath for the truth. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing-room, his small frame commanding the space, his green eyes sharp as he faced the gathered household. The murder of Lord Reginald Ashford, stabbed in the locked gallery beneath the lady in crimson, had spun a web of secrets. The hidden will leaving the painting to Clara, the locket with Lady Eleanor's portrait found in the frame, the slashed canvas, the black cat, the feathers, the whispers, and Clara's brief disappearance, resolved by finding her hiding in the attic with a letter from Lady Eleanor. Each clue had pointed to a motive-greed betrayal or a scandal buried. In time, now Poirot's little grey cells had woven the threads together. Ready to name the killer and end the mystery, Captain Hastings stood by the fireplace, his face tense but eager, his tie neatly knotted for once. "Poirot, old chap, you've got that look, the one you get when you've cracked it. Are you really going to solve this tonight?" Poirot's moustache twitched, his voice calm but firm. "Oui, mon ami. The puzzle is complete. The painting, the locket, the murder, they all point to one truth, and Poirot shall reveal it. The killer, they are in this room." The family and staff were gathered, their faces a mix of fear, anger, and curiosity. Lady Beatrice Ashford sat on a velvet sofa, her posture rigid, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes cold but wary. Charles Ashford leaned against the wall, his broad frame tense, a brandy glass empty in his hand, his anger barely contained since learning Clara inherited the painting. Evelyn, his wife, sat nearby, her blonde hair loose, her fingers twisting a scarf, her face pale after confessing her secret meetings with Mr. Langston. Clara, the niece, huddled in an armchair, her eyes red from crying, her fear of the paintings. Curse softened by her safe return from the attic. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood by the door, his calm mask hiding a flicker of unease. Inspector Davies, his bushy moustache twitching, stood ready with 2 constables, his notebook open, trusting Poirot to deliver justice. Poirot paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, his voice clear and commanding. "Madame et messieurs, the murder of Lord Reginald Ashford was no work of a curse, but of a human hand, driven by greed and fear. The painting, The Lady in Crimson, was the stage, its history of Lady Eleanor's betrayal, the script. Let us unravel the truth, step by step." He held up the locket, its gold gleaming in the firelight. "This locket, found in the painting's frame, holds Lady Eleanor's portrait, a token of her love for Edmund Varnley, and a letter proving her family betrayed her, perhaps murdered her in 1642. Lord Ashford discovered this, and it threatened. A scandal, an Ashford ancestor, guilty of a crime. This secret, it was worth killing for." Lady Beatrice's voice was sharp. "A scandal? Nonsense, Monsieur Poirot. The Ashfords are honourable. Reginald would never let such a thing ruin us." Charles snorted, his voice rough. "Honourable? Father was drowning in debts, and he left the painting to Clara, not me. That locket's probably worth a fortune, too." Clara's voice trembled, tears in her eyes. I didn't want it. I told you, it's cursed. Evelyn's voice was soft, but strained. Charles, stop it. We're all grieving. Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. Grief, we, but also guilt. Let us begin with the night of the murder. Lord Ashford was stabbed in the locked gallery, the dagger smeared with crimson paint, the key in his pocket. The room was sealed, no windows broken, no secret doors. How, then, did the killer enter and leave? Hastings leaned forward, his eyes wide. That's the puzzle, Poirot. A locked room impossible. Poirot smiled faintly. Not impossible, mon ami, but clever. The killer used a simple trick, one Poirot has seen before. The key, it was never in Lord Ashford's pocket. During the murder, it was used to lock the door from the outside, then returned to his pocket after. Davies frowned, his moustache twitching, returned. How, without entering the room? Poirot's eyes gleamed. The gallery door, it has a gap beneath, small but enough. The killer, after stabbing Lord Ashford, locked the door, slid the key under, and later, when the door was broken open, they slipped it back into his pocket during the chaos. A bold move, but simple. Lady Beatrice gasped. You mean one of us did this? Poirot nodded, his voice steady. Oui, madame. Now, the clues, the black cat, the feathers, the whispers. They were staged to fuel the curse, to frighten and distract. The cat, it was lured with food, its feathers placed to terrify. The whispers, they came from someone in this house, using the hall's echoes to haunt Clara. Clara shivered, her voice a whisper. I heard my name, Monsieur Poirot. It was real, oui, Poirot said, but human. The paintings, slashing, it was no act of rage, but a calculated move to hide the frame's secret or to point. Blame, and Clara's disappearance she hid in the attic, fearing for her life after finding Lady Eleanor's letter. He held up the letter, its yellowed paper trembling in his hand. This letter, from 1642, proves Lady Eleanor's family, perhaps Ashford ancestors, betrayed her. Lord Ashford knew, and it threatened the family's name, or the painting's value. Someone killed to keep it hidden. Charles's face flushed, his voice a growl. So, what? You're saying Clara killed him to get the painting, then faked her disappearance? Clara sobbed, shaking her head. No, I loved Uncle Reginald. Poirot's gaze turned to Evelyn, his voice gentle but probing. Madame Evelyn, you met Mr. Langston in secret to sell the painting. Did you know of the locket, the letter? Evelyn's hands shook, tears falling. No, I swear. I only wanted to help Charles, to clear the debts. I didn't know about the locket until you found it. Poirot nodded, then turned to Grayson. Monsieur Grayson, you see all, hear all. You saw Clara's fear, Evelyn's letters, Lord Ashford's research. Did you see the killer? Grayson's calm, cracked, his eyes flickering. I only served, sir. I saw nothing. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his voice rising. Nothing. Monsieur Grayson, or everything. Poirot has watched you, your calm, your quiet steps. You know this house, its secrets, its passages. You placed the cat, the feathers, to scare Clara. You whispered in the halls, to drive her to fear. And you slashed the painting, to hide the locket's secret. The room gasped, all eyes on Grayson. Lady Beatrice's voice was a hiss. Grayson, our butler, that's absurd. Grayson's face paled, but he stood straight. Sir, I'm loyal. I'd never harm his lordship. Poirot paced, his voice relentless. Loyal, oui, but to whom? Poirot has learned much. You are not just a butler. Monsieur Grayson, you are a descendant of Lady Eleanor's family, are you not? A distant cousin, hired under a false name, seeking the locket to bury the scandal of your ancestors' crime. Hastings gasped. Good heavens, Poirot, how'd you figure that? Poirot held up a letter found in Grayson's quarters during the attic search. This, from your sister, confirms your true name, Edward Varnley, kin to Edmund Varnley, the painter. You came to Ashford Manor, posing as a butler, to find the locket and letter. Lord Ashford's research threatened to expose your family's guilt, ruining your name and the painting's value, which you planned to steal and sell to Madame Dubois. Grayson's mask shattered, his voice shaking. You can't prove it. I didn't kill him. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Oh, but I can. The paint on the dagger. It matched the paint used to slash the painting, both from a tin in the manor cellar, where you were seen by the maids. The thread in the frame, it matches your cloak. And the key, you slid it under the door, then slipped it back during the chaos, using your access to the house. Davies stepped forward, his voice gruff. That's enough for me, Monsieur Poirot. Grayson, you're under arrest. Grayson lunged for the door, but the constables grabbed him, his struggle brief and futile. I had to protect my family, he shouted. The locket, it would have ruined us. Lord Ashford was going to sell it, expose everything. Clara sobbed, clinging to Lady Beatrice. The curse, it wasn't real. Poirot's voice was gentle. Nan, mademoiselle, the curse was Grayson's creation, to scare you, to drive you away from the painting. He killed Lord Ashford to silence him, slashed the painting to hide the locket's trace, and frightened you to keep you from speaking. Evelyn's voice broke, tears streaming. And Madame Dubois, was she involved? Poirot shook his head. Madame Dubois, she was a collector, obsessed but innocent. Grayson used her interest to cast suspicion, writing to her as Lord Ashford to stir confusion. Charles's face softened, his anger fading. So, it's over. The painting's safe. Poirot nodded. Safe, oui, but its value, it is yours to decide. The locket and letter, they are evidence, but also history. Keep them or let them rest. Lady Beatrice stood, her voice steady. We'll keep the painting for Reginald's memory. But the locket, it's caused enough pain.